Hydro field cuts through my neighborhood.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Fearlessly Authentic. I'm Lucky, your host, and tonight we have some special guests with us. And Leo, of course, is barking in the background. Here is Zainab Day, who's going to help me co-host and just help answer some questions and give some insight. And we have over here Camilla. Welcome. Oh, look at that. We have Joe. Hi, Joe. And
Hi.
guess who else just joined us?
Hey.
Paula Jean.
Y'all brought me out of the interview closet, so applause, because I really hate doing this.
Well, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. I appreciate it.
You look lovely, Paula.
Thank you. Look at my hair. It's all red and rooty where I need to dye it. I look terrible.
It looks good.
Yeah, I like it. I think you look cute. So
you look very nice.
So if Zainab, if you want to start just like giving everybody, most you've been on the channel before, but a little bit of background about yourself and, like where you've kind of been, politically and all of that. Cause we're talking about MPP tonight. We're talking about Cornel West and the Green Party and anything that you ladies want to talk about.
Well, hey guys. I know I've seen most of y'all before. It's good to be back and to have Paula Jean and Joe Sheree and Camila, some amazing women hanging out with us tonight. I don't know. I did politics for 10 years and that was crazy. I worked at Justice Democrats. Yeah, I know. Y'all can judge. Brand new Congress. And then after Paula Jean and I called out AOC and raised a bunch of hell, I ended up not working at Brand New Congress anymore because we spoke the truth. And I ended up going to the People's Party after that. Always was an independent, always believed, in third parties or helped. About 15 years ago, I was registered libertarian, believe it or not, even though I've always been really socially, very socially progressive. I was a libertarian. So, yeah, that's sort of my history. And I know it wasn't very fluid. I apologize. I probably need more. I need some Red Bull or something, but.
Okay, Camilla, give it a go.
All right. Hello, everybody. I'm Camila Harris. I come from California, actually Southern California. We're a very big state, as a lot of people know. So I'm from the southern part. And I actually am born and raised in California. So the first time I actually got involved in political action stuff, I would say would be 2009. I was still a Democrat then. When you're pretty much black, you grow up Democrat. So that's basically what I was in. I got involved with Organizing for America, which was the organization right after Obama became president. It went from Obama America to Organizing for America. And so I was involved in that for 3 years. I worked as an official volunteer for the 2012 election. And then after that, I basically went on hiatus for a little bit. And then I was involved in Tulsi Gabbard's campaign in 2020 as an official volunteer, online volunteer, to be honest. And then after that ended, I was like, I'm done with the Democratic Party, and MPP came up, and I said, sure, why not? I have nothing else. And I wanted to get into independent politics, so that's how I dived into that. And then, of course, once that ended, in November of 2020, I re-registered green as a voter. And in July of 2021 is when I became an organizational volunteer for the Green Party. So that's my my line. I don't know how smooth that was either, but prostate shot.
That was awesome. And then how about you, Joe?
Well, my entrance into politics has been kind of a long and winding road. I initially got involved because I have a son that has disabilities, and so they were threatening to, back when Sam Brownback took over, was elected governor. He wanted to put the IDD, which is the intellectual developmental disabilities, and the HCBS, home and community-based supports waiver, into the CanCare program that they had created. And that was a program that didn't need to be managed. And so I decided that at that point, it was time for me to get involved. So I got a group started on Facebook, helped with a group called Recall Sam Brownback. I've since then I have become, I was the vice president of our Capital Area Democratic Women's Group. I'm now the communications secretary for that group. For that organization. I am the communications secretary for Kansas Federation of Democratic Women. I'm also the caucus chair for the Kansas Democratic Disability Caucus, and I'm on the ADA Council here in Topeka, Kansas. And I also this year, myself and other sexual abuse survivors worked on legislation to get the statute of limitations extended for sexual abuse, and it passed unanimously in the House and the Senate, and it becomes law on July 1st. It went to the governor's desk and she signed it. We had our ceremonial signing I think the end of May or first part of June. So that passed unanimously, and our next push is to get the statute of limitations time extended a little bit more next session. We're also going to be working on mandated reporting to make sure that clergy are mandated reporters of sexual abuse. And
yeah,
That'd be great.
I think that that's going to actually get some traction in light of all of the investigations into the Catholic Church sex abuse. Here in Kansas, for sure, our report, KBI, released in November of last year, it uncovered 166 priests who were found guilty of sexually abusing children in the Catholic Church. Maryland released their report. There's a couple of other states that have released theirs. Illinois. Illinois found 499 or 98 priests that were guilty of sexually abusing minors in the church.
Oh my God.
So
that's astronomically huge. That's just,
yeah,
it's huge what you're doing and what you're continuing to do. Wow. That's
and
amazing.
that's why, right, and that's when Cornel West dismissed the sexual abuse and the sexual assault stuff that he was so dismissive about with Zaina. With everything that I've been working on this year in regards to sexual abuse and sexual assault, I felt that was highly offensive and really just a bunch of BS. Absolutely. And that's why I wanted to come on this tonight with Zaina as a show of solidarity, because I'm a sexual abuse survivor and a sexual assault survivor. And there's strength in numbers, and people, survivors proved their strength in numbers here in my state this year. So I want to call Cornel West on his BS that he should have known better. He should have known what he was supporting. And
absolutely.
and see, And then I'll say this real quick, and then I'll let Paula Jean go. They used a conversation that I was having with a petitioner in regards to Cornel West and Susan Sarandon as an excuse to oust me from MPP. And I still have all the receipts on that. So I keep everything, especially when it comes to MPP, because you never know when their ugly heads are going to rear. So
Yeah, receipts are always that's so important to just always keep record and have receipts of everything. Absolutely. I agree. Paula?
Hey, y'all. I don't know if I can touch. I'll try to tell my story quickly, but I was born a coal miner's daughter and granddaughter. I am a native West Virginian, and I got my start in politics probably 20, 30 years ago. And it really wasn't politics, it was activism. I was born a coal miner's daughter and granddaughter. I was born in Mullins, West Virginia. I lived in a little community called Iroquois. Most of my family was in coal mining. My stepdad, my dad was in the coal mines. My grandpa, he was a proud UMWA member. He was in the coal mines for 45 years. My uncles, a lot of family members. And when I was growing up, we dealt with the boom and bust. I know what it's like to go hungry when the coal industry market was down. I even drank acid mine drainage when I was a little girl. In our community, our water came out of an abandoned coal mine. Our water had metal stakes in it. It was orange and it had a blue and purple film. We bathed in it. We drank in it. I can remember running water in the bathtub when I was little and it had a purple film. We had a slate dump, which is a form of coal waste. Back then, slate dumps were burning all the time, and it was, those toxic metals and waste getting in the air. And I grew up like that. And talking about my hair, it's sun damaged right now a little bit because I've not dyed my hair in a while and I've been in the sun, and I'm getting old. But when my stepdad got laid off from the coal mines, we moved to North Carolina when I was 11, 12, 13. And I discovered after having access to clean water that I wasn't a redhead no more. I found out that I was a brunette.
Wow.
Fast forward, we moved back to West Virginia. My kids, brought my kids here. And, West Virginia, I don't know what it is. It's like a love-hate relationship. It's probably some of the most beautiful mountains in the world, some of the most beautiful people in the world. Heart of the labor movement in Appalachia, Central Appalachia especially. And when I came home, I started noticing things were still wrong. The market for coal was down. I was living in a community called Lester with a lot of my neighbors had cancer, including a 7-year-old girl that went to school with my boys. I shaved my head against mountaintop removal, fighting against the water pollution. And I fought, the mountains are billions of years old. I never imagined that they would start blowing them up for profit, but they did. So mechanization was taking the jobs of men. And, through my activism, I did a lot of things. I spoke at the United Nations. I shaved my head against mountaintop removal one time. I did it because I cut my leg off for my kids and was just fighting for my state. Fast forward to, politics. Joe Manchin, we all know what boogeyman he is. He's been the same since he was a delegate. He's not changed. He's corrupt to the core. Nobody would challenge him. So, people reached out during that time. I'd met Bernie Sanders. I thought this great big movement was going to be, ordinary people running for office. We were going to bring change, especially in places like my state, Flint, Michigan, Standing Rock. People, this is America. We shouldn't be having to beg for something so basic as a clean glass of water. And I thought, what do I got to lose? I've done everything that I could. So I challenged Joe Manchin. We got 35% of the vote against a sitting incumbent in 75 years. We don't talk about it enough, but it was the first time in West Virginia history that we had the very first people-funded campaign. And we actually outraised, I became the Democratic nominee against Shelley Moore Capito for U.S. Senate in 2020. And we outraised her, small funding, against her dark money. We outraised her the last 2 quarters, and the average donation was $27. West Virginia made history, and I'm proud of West Virginia and everybody across the country that helped make that happen. No, I didn't win, but you know what? It was part of that movement. We heard Bernie Sanders say, run for office, do the right things. But, you know, when I did run for office, I did get Senator Sanders support after I became the nominee, but he really didn't support a lot of federal races. And it wasn't until I became, you know, earned my keep that I got support. But, you know, now let's look, you know, we were talking about a movement across the country, fighting corruption in politics. I finally left the Democratic Party because I got more resistance from the Democratic Party, even as the nominee, than I did Republicans at the time. You know, moved forward to the People's Party. I went to the People's Party. I was very reluctant. Zaina will tell you, when I first met with Nick and Rob, I heard about the things that was going on. You know, back then it wasn't the sexual assault. It wasn't, you know, hanging out with Nazis. But there was rumors that there's drama as an activist. You know, you hear that in the activist world. Let them know if this is not okay, then I will leave and I will call you out, because people are literally dying. People in my state, minorities, disenfranchised community members, we don't have time for people to find themselves into politics. I've been hearing that a lot about Dr. West lately, that, you know, he's trying to find himself. Well, you know what? We can't wait. We can't wait. You know, domestic violence victims, you know, what happened to Zaina, and still skirting around and not saying that Nick should go where he needs to go and he needs to get out of politics. He's still saying, oh, well, everybody's welcome. I'm sorry. Rapists are not welcome in this movement. I'm sorry. Nazis are not welcome. I will organize with anybody. You know, we're working towards trying to better this country. And we need to quit looking at heroes. You know, I respect Dr. West, but I also think that Dr. West really needs to take a stand with this, because women are just as important. We hear about how the social issues that he talks about, but then he moves on and says, well, everybody's welcome. We can't ride the fence. We've heard that enough from politicians. And if it's going to be that way, why don't we just go ahead and keep with the, you know, the Democrats and Republicans? But, you know, with the People's Party, you know, I admittedly made a mistake. I fell for it. But when I found out about it, I've deeply spoken out about it, because I know Zaina. And Nick Bonner raped my friends. I know her daughter that watched the trauma. I watched her family. I was there with Zaina when she was going through all the interviews and the smear campaigns and what her family went through. And she's not the only woman. I'm also a survivor of domestic violence myself. I'm also a survivor of rape. And I cannot imagine, you know, when you put yourself in the limelight and you're in the political arena, that's one thing, and you expect scrutiny. But what Zaina's went through, especially on Twitter, you know, just the rape apologists blaming her just for political expediency. Where is the movement, and what are we doing if we don't stand up for women? We don't stand up for disenfranchised community members. We don't stand up for minorities and people suffering in this country. Why even be in politics? I'm really, really sick and tired of fighting the people that are supposed to be our allies in performative allyship, as opposed to actually building a movement again. And if we're going to build a movement, this is my opinion, the heroes are us. And we're going to, you know, it's going to come with mutual aid. It's going to be organizing in our communities. And first and foremost, whoever runs for office, we hold them accountable. We've not heard anybody talking about Medicare for all anymore. We don't hear anybody talking about a living wage. You know, Fight for 15 is a joke anymore, because even here in West Virginia, I used to say $15 would be life-changing. I make $16 an hour in a call center right now. We still struggle to pay our bills. We have to prioritize each other. If we're going to have a movement in this country, the movement is going to start with us. It doesn't start with Bernie Sanders. You know, now he's back, you know, kissing Democrats' ass, and we're not hearing anything. And I mean, I have a lot of respect for Senator Sanders, but I do not have a respect for these political decisions where people think that expediency is more important when people are struggling. Why be in politics, and why, you know, run as a public servant if you're not putting the people, the most vulnerable in this country, first and foremost, and especially not dismissing a rape victim for political expediency?
Wow. Like, mic drop. Like, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. You're like, you're so on point with this, and it's I'm a survivor of, you know, of sexual assault and you know, rape myself, and it's awful. It's awful to go through, and then just to see the excuses and just, you know, like the political game of it. It's like, no, this is our actual lives. Like we actually go through this. We deserve to have the support. We deserve to have our voices heard, and we do not deserve to be squashed and squambled and called a distraction or, you know, dismissed as whatever just because, or pick us apart because you don't agree with something else that we have to say. Like, our voices matter, and that's why I'm so honored to have you ladies here tonight. I really, really am. I'm so many like to have so many like powerful women together in one panel is just it's amazing.
Thanks for getting us all together, Lucky.
Yeah.
And shout out to Jara Brown. Okay, she's in the chat because she kind of like was like, "Hey, why don't you guys like do this?" And we were like, "Let's do it." So thank you, Jara. She gave us a push for this, and she helped us with this. So even though she's not on screen, she was definitely a core part of making this happen. So
It's
we
green
appreciate
Wicca.
you.
If anyone doesn't know, that's green.
Yeah.
Green Wicca is Dear Brown.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. So, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start. Where do we start with this? Like,
I know one thing. I mean, that I do think could start this is basically where women are right now in this movement, whatever people want to call it. You know, I know Dr. Cornel West has his whole United Front, broad-based coalition movement thing that he has going on as a strategy for his campaign, but the details have yet to really like fully flesh out. I don't think it's like a fully formed idea or a fully formed like ideology or something from which everyone on the left or in the independent left can actually get on board about. Because I mean, there's been talks of him still including MPP. There's still talks of him including other organizations who also have had controversial backgrounds like DSA, as far as the racism and all that stuff in their organization. And then, there are other organizations that are good, but it's like, I'm not sure if they would want to jump on board with this if it's like, Paula talked about, really like going against minority and marginalized groups in particular. So, like, for instance, like I've even seen content from a socialist alternative, which is a Kasama Sawant's organization, talking about that they want to get involved with the Cornel West campaign. So I'm kind of like thinking like where women are in this whole like conversation. I feel like that we've been, as leftist women, we've been left out of a lot of spaces. Like with me, I grew up in a household, an abusive household, as a child. So I wasn't like molested or anything, but my birth dad did get violent with me beginning at 15. So I understand the victimization aspect of it all. And I do think we don't have enough spaces for women to be like front voices in these movements. They have been led by men, a lot of times led by white men, and the rest of us are just like in the shadows, like having these conversations or, in the background. And we don't know, if we can even get to a table. Like, I mean, we want to get to a table, but sometimes we feel intimidated to even get there and then sit there and then literally take up space to say, we matter at this table. So
yeah, I feel like we get like a lot of we get a lot of pushback, like, oh, women are emotional, they're hysterical, or they're this or that, like all the stereotypes that come to play, right?
Yeah, I've gotten the angry black woman thing many times throughout.
Hold my earrings, child.
Yes.
I've gotten it.
The thing that I've noticed is, even like with the Senator Sanders movement, he went into communities which are respected. When I run for office, my campaign would get onto me a lot because I decided when I first ran for office that I was doing it as an activist. I wanted change in my state, but what I done everything I could to uplift the voices of struggling people. And that's what was the incentive with the campaign. I noticed with Dr. West, there's a lot of political speak and talking about how you can uplift people that are struggling. But still, what I think is missing in that campaign is the people that are struggling, their voices are not being uplifted, their stories are not being uplifted, and we're not actually building a movement. No matter who the candidate is, I don't have a lot of respect for the me campaigns. If you listen to a politician, and I've spent a lot of time around a lot of them, so I can tell you a lot of things about what I know with especially federal politicians, is, they like to show up in their communities and pick up a shovel when, whole communities flooded to a photo op, but they never want to get burdened. They never want to do the grunt work. We hear a lot about how we're going to get some help and how our sad ass stories are so important for their campaign. The post campaign is what I want to know about. The establishment is not going to let anybody through the door without a fight. One of the reasons I'm probably not in Congress is because I would probably be getting arrested doing the filibuster. I wouldn't be playing around. We need real voices in office from a local level to a federal level. But I'm getting really sick and tired of the political arena saying these things are important. Our lives matter, but our lives never matter when they're supposed to be public servants once they get elected. And that's a big problem. If I want to hear from Dr. West, is he taking dark money? Is he focusing on Medicare for all? What is his plan? What is his plan for economic development in these poor communities in states like mine? People want to know those things. I mean, he's a good speaker, but we want to know the nuts and bolts. And even with the People's Party, I was listening to him on Status too. Jordan asked him, are you still affiliated with the People's Party? He didn't clearly say no. He didn't say he dismissed it. He said he was running with the Green Party. We've heard from the People's Party that they're building an alliance. Dr. West has said it's unity. Everybody's welcome. I'm sorry, people that are raping my friends, that are destroying my community, putting, polluted water in my children, in our children's tap water, doing all these things across this country. I'm sorry, they are not us. If we want a real working class movement, then the poor and working class need to be uplifted. They need to be front and center. The people in front of the pain, like people said, and need to be in front of the power. I said it even during the campaign. We don't, people like Shelley Moore Capito, Joe Manchin, they don't know what it is to live like that, to, balance their checkbooks and live payday to payday, wondering where their next meal is going to come from and go hungry. We need people that understand that struggle. And if we're going to have that kind of movement, it's going to come from us. It's not going to come from anybody that we need to look up to. When I grew up, my mother always told me, especially as a little girl, there's power in numbers. She told me never to walk by myself, to always walk with somebody. And I've always took that with me throughout my life. Any movement that I've seen that ever grow, it grew with multitudes of people working together, and it wasn't just one person.
And, I want to say, I want to go back to something that Paula Jean said about the establishment and men. I ran for office 3 times. First time I ran for city council. Second time I ran for state senate. Third time around, I ran for House of Representatives here. The first race, I was the only woman in my race out of, there's 2 other men and myself. The second time I ran, I was the only woman out of 2 men. The third time I ran, I was up against a guy that was picked by the establishment. I worked my ass off in every race that I was in, and the men in my Senate race, they didn't even go to the rural counties. They primarily stayed in Shawnee County. I carried the rural counties in my district, and I spent more time in the rural counties than I did in Shawnee because I knew I needed the rural votes. And I came within, I almost beat Tobias. And last year, when Paula was talking about there are some candidates that don't want to get out and do the grunt work. I was out last year in triple-digit heat, knocking doors for almost 4 weeks. My competitor didn't even start knocking doors until the weekend before Election Day. And I'd already been out knocking doors in the heat and delivering signs and doing whatever I had to do. I was out knocking doors at least 4 days out of the week for at least 4 to 5 hours a day. So I came within 500 votes of beating this dude in the primary.
Wow.
500, okay? So I'm planning on running again next year, and I've got another so they gerrymandered things really bad in Kansas. So I've lost one of the counties that I did really well in, and I've got to go do a lot of work in another county that we picked up. So, but I have support from a lot of people that I didn't have before because of what happened earlier this year with the statute of limitations legislation. And I'm hoping that the establishment stays out of my way this year or next year and just lets me do what I got to do to get in.
Yeah, they might come at you harder. They
They
might come
might.
at you even harder because you have more recognition. So just be prepared.
Oh, I am. I know all of the dirty tricks in this state. Trust me, from both parties.
So, from like inside of like, you know, the MPP, like how what was that climate like? You know what I mean? Like just being inside of it, dealing with all of this. Like, do you like how do you just some like insider like background information, because I think a lot of people don't realize what it's like to be on the inside of this kind of thing and to understand like the dynamics of what's happening, and like just, you know, the ins and outs of that. Like because I like kind of got behind like the MPP thing. Like I was kind of like skeptical, you know what I mean? I was registered as a Democrat because because like you know you have to be able to vote and you know the primary and all of that, like, and but like I didn't really like ever jump fully on board with the MPP, but I feel like, you know, a lot of people like kind of put their faith in that. I think that there was a big push for it, but I don't know what it's like to be on the inside of kind of like a party like that. Like what was the climate like when you joined?
Yeah,
Well-
I could definitely answer for my side. I think Paula came in like after a lot of things had, you know, transpired. But I was involved in the organization with at the same time as Joe. So I can speak from my side first, and I'm guessing like Joe can, like, you know, kind of piggyback because like I said, we were in it at the same time with each other. But with me, like I came in off of the People's Convention, which I called the splash event that happened in late August of 2020. And this is where Dr. Cornel West's backstory is actually not true. He was not a founder of MPP. So let me just make that clear. He was not a founder of
see,
MPP.
and no one else is saying this, so like this is important.
Okay, the organization started back in 2017, and this was off of the Bernie Sanders campaign from 2016. And so it was this organization that Nick Brana and a couple of other folks, or a few other folks, formed that was called Draft Bernie. So the idea of this organization was to draft Bernie to run independent. Okay. Of course, that didn't work out. He ended up running Democrat again. And so the whole premise for the whole organization just fell apart. And that was the end of that. And so the people that were left, I guess, hanging in the hanging balance was like, well, we might as well start an organization toward building a major new party. And that's how Movement for a People's Party was born. Okay. Now, if you're talking about the legalities, that organization was actually under a different name. I think it was People for a Working Democracy is the actual, like, if you go through legal FEC or 527s or whatever that stuff, that's the name of the organization through the legal side of things. But the front-facing organization was Movement for a People's Party, acronym MPP. And the head of this was Nick Brana, this figure that came out of nowhere that nobody knew the background of or whatever, you know. And he had these same group of folks, or a few of these folks that came out of Dry Bernie to form this. Okay, so if you flash forward a little bit, I don't know if you heard of Our Revolution Los Angeles or Burn the DNC. Well, both of those organizations did a merge into this new form MPP. Burn the DNC did a full merge into them, so they pretty much collapsed their whole organization and everybody funneled into MPP. Our Revolution Los Angeles did kind of what I would call a partial merge, where they was still a group, an active group locally here in Los Angeles, but they were helping, especially administratively, MPP to get off the ground. So these elements is what formed the first base of people in MPP. Okay. The next wave came after this People's Party convention, this People's Convention. And with the People's Convention, this was supposed to be like the coming out party for, because that was part of, like, when you registered to go to the People's Convention, you actually were helping with the process of naming this new party, right? There was a lot of controversy that came out of this little so-called vote and stuff. There are other people who can give like real details about it, but supposedly there was controversy in coming up with this name. So, but in the end, it became the People's Party. So that's where you get.
Yeah, I've heard a little bit of backstory from others that have said, you know, like that name wasn't Nick Brana's originally, and all kinds of things. It was kind of like co-opted and taken from other people.
When you registered to attend this People's Convention, it was like one of the activities that you got to be a part of was naming the party. And so there were actually a lot of names that were submitted for, you know, to choose from. And then, of course, they dwindled it down to this finalist list. And in this finalist list was People's Party. Of course, I voted for People's Party because that was the most obvious thing coming off of movement for a People's Party. So that's why I voted for that. But, like, in the end, that's what won. Like, was People's Party. So this People's Convention was the culmination of, or the, you know, like the conclusion of that vote. And it was the coming out party, if you will, or the splash introduction event for MPP, being the People's Party. Okay. So what the event was, it was kind of like a collection of like big names on the left. So you have Jimmy Dore as a speaker. You have Nico House as a speaker. You have Medea Benjamin as a speaker. You have at the top of this, like the keynote speakers that were the headliners, if you will, of this event was Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner. Okay, so off of this, when we all came into the organization, because, you know, just like what's going on now, you know, with Dr. Cornel West being the splash name, and everybody all of a sudden wants to join the Green Party. It was the same thing with the People's Convention. We all was like super excited off of it and did all the forums and all that stuff to get into MPP, the organizational side. What we didn't know is that they didn't have a real infrastructure. Like, it wasn't easy to be funneled into a group or a committee or your state or all that stuff. Because, I mean, you actually had to go through what they called an onboarding process. Like, I was onboarded twice. So I was onboarded as a volunteer, and then I was onboarded as what they call like a local hub coordinator. So for my area, Inglewood, California, I was supposed to be the Inglewood hub coordinator. That was my title, right? So I got basically vetted or like interviewed to even get into the organization. So it wasn't as simple as I fill out a form and I'm in. No, I actually had to go through getting funneled into the organization. And so from there, you know, we learned about, okay, there was some semblance of a structure. And Joe can talk about that, you know, once I'm done in a second, where we had these circles, we had these working groups, we had our state hubs. There was, when you talk about the structure as far as leadership, Nick Brana was, of course, at the top as like the executive director and all that kind of stuff. But he had this group of people that they were all appointed by Nick. Nobody was elected. They were called at the time National Coordinator Circle. So
doesn't seem like a lot of democracy. It doesn't seem like that's You know what I mean? A lot of democracy happening with that, you know?
There was like no democracy.
Like immediately off the bat.
If Nick liked you, you were likely to be on this board. And most of the board was basically older white people. There was nobody black on this board. Let me make this clear. There was nobody really of color on this board. It was all older. Maybe like two people were like younger, but they were white. Okay, so I'm just put it out there.
Say it how it is, girl.
And then like right under them was like your regional coordinators. So we were set up in regions when you're talking about the states. And then in each of the regions was a set of states. So you had like the Pacific, side. You had like the Eastern side. You had like the Northwest. Like it was divided like that. And then you had your states. And then your states had hub coordinators that were, in position to, be in charge of all the states. And then you had my position was the local level. And that's how that was set up. So geographically, that's how we were set up. But then we also had, working groups for things like media and messaging, finance, different aspects of the organization. And then, which I really want Joe to talk about because her circle was the disability circle. I was in the poor people circle, and I was also in other, like I was in different working groups and circles, including the Black voter circle. Me black. I was in the Black voter circle.
No way.
Yeah. So I was heavily involved in the infrastructure of MPP. So when I talk, I'm not coming from a place like I don't know anything and I don't have no experience. I was deeply in the machine of MPP. So yeah.
So, I'm gonna go. That was a good segue, actually. I came into MPP after the national convention because I was all rah, thinking that this was actually going to be a thing. And so I signed up and I got my onboarding call with Michelle Ramirez, who's actually was out of Lawrence, Kansas. And I thought, okay, I'm in. And I got into the Slack and I started looking around and trying to see where I was going to fit in. And I was just like, wait a minute, I have a son that's disabled. We should have a disability circle or, a place for people with disabilities to congregate. And so we started to get people in, and my circle was actually one of the biggest circles within MPP because I was heavily recruiting anywhere and everywhere I could think of within the structure to get people in there. And, and then I thought, oh, well, there is really no blueprint for how we're supposed to be doing things, how we're supposed to build and whatnot. And so that was concerning to me. And I was like, well, are we going to have political outreach, like a general meeting? And so we started having those because I brought that up. And I wasn't the only one. There was a lot of us that got together who were on the petition, who felt like there was no real infrastructure for us to follow. And there's no SOPs. There was no bylaws. That was the other thing. How can you start a party without bylaws? That was an immediate red flag for me. But I just kind of like, okay, they're new-ish. I gave them some grace. And
I think a lot of us did that. A lot of us did exactly that,
And so, things kind of went along, and there are some of us that started to see in some cracks. And my first major red flag was when I was in a political outreach meeting with Tiffany Anning and Nick Brana, and we were told not to focus on policy when we're talking to stakeholders or possible stakeholders. And I'm like, how do you not focus on policy when you're talking to possible stakeholders to join us? And, these are people who are going to want to see stuff, and they wanted us to basically be clout chasers. I'm sorry, I'm not a clout chaser. People that are disabled, we don't need clout chasers. We need, well, I'm not disabled, my son is, but people with disabilities don't need clout chasers. People with disabilities need people that are going to take creating policy around their needs seriously.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I'm a disabled person, so absolutely, I agree with you 100%. Like chasing clout doesn't do anything for us. Like I don't
No.
care. Like,
And let me jump in real quick about that, because that actually happened with the Black Voter Circle as well. I wasn't there at the time, but I got like the full blown like debriefing, whatever you want to call it, when I came back after a small hiatus with my stepdad, who was in and out of the hospital, struggling with COPD. So we were told that Nick Brunner and this person, Tiffany Awning, who was also on the National Coordinator Circle, part of that appointed group that was on top of NPP, had came to our leadership and said, "Oh, we need you to work on trying to get more blacks into NPP." And the strategy that they thought of was engaging someone like Diddy, who at the time was like talking about possibly forming his own political party or whatever. And they was like, we need to engage Diddy and try to get him to help us with the strategy of getting more blacks into NPP. And of course, my leadership was like, because they were like me, like Joe just said, we were about policy too. Like we're about, okay, what you gonna do for black folks? Like the things that we're about. Because I mean, we even
like real issues, not celebrity. Like
exactly. So
we the money to take care of their issues
with the top brass about reparations getting on our platform. That was kind of it wasn't like a huge fight, but it was definitely a conflict between that National Coordinator Circle and my Black Voter Circle. And it didn't like go into like the Slack workspace, which is, for people who don't know what Slack is, it was like our headquarter communication space. Like that's where we had different channels for our different circles and our different working groups, and that's where we did a lot of communications, planned our meetings. We would have meetings on Zoom or some other platform. It was just our working area. So anytime Slack is brought up, that's basically what we're talking about. So yeah, there was a lot of, like, oh, y'all should just worry about in your different circles about trying to get more people in NPP and not about policy. Which I mean, I came in to get rid of the duopoly. I didn't come in to help you get, for example, more people with disabilities or more blacks to be in NPP so you can have bodies, do whatever you want them to do. We're people. So yeah, she's telling the truth. She's telling the whole truth.
It was the same thing when we was there. We was actually trying to organize outside of those circles because I came in as candidate engagement director, and Nick just wanted to run candidates, and we didn't. There was no way we legally couldn't run candidates. And then, I was the regional coordinator for West Virginia, and I was supposed to be organizing for West Virginia, and I was all gung ho, and I was an Action Network. And then I'm like, okay, what circle does this person go to? So what do they do after they get to that circle? They get vetted, they get onboarded, and they go on Slack. So we were actually saying, as the executive director, and the rest of us were saying, we have to build this infrastructure in order to run candidates. And I'm not going to bring anybody in. Slack was so toxic. Nick was so toxic. I did not want to associate my volunteers with Nick, which I was very transparent with the leadership. I'm not doing this until we have a place for people. Organizing is just not throwing somebody in Slack. And that's exactly what they did. And they did. That's what Nick does. When I was there, I can say what I've seen the most was it was the same as it was when it first started. There was really no organizing actually to run any type of campaigns or actually to build a party. Everybody just went to Slack, and it was a Nick show. Nick is very abusive. It wasn't only the stuff that happened with Zaina. I had my own personal grievances with Nick. After I traveled with him, I was out on the road with him. He's very disrespectful to volunteers. disabled volunteers that were out. He'd walk off and leave them in the street. He was always an hour or 2 hours late. Like, when we occupied Congress, Nick was an hour late just because he's that disrespectful. I stayed at the hotel. I was supposed to get rides. I would be left walking to the Capitol by myself. Stayed with his family, which was a nightmare. Him and his mom fighting and him throwing socks at her. No respect, not letting people eat. He would. I cannot tell you how abusive he is. And the only thing he did, we were contractors, but we were supposed to be on Nick's beck and call. Sometimes he would have us on phone calls till 3 o'clock in the morning with these bright ideas like running Cornel West. And he actually, people like me and Zana, were defending Cornel West when he came up with this idea, because there's no way that they have any type of infrastructure to support a presidential candidate. And I'm like, it's immoral. And, he wanted me and Zana to go with him to persuade Dr. West to run for president. And we told him that that's not fair to Dr. West. Then, the Jimmy Dore thing, even going in, we're like that. I was really leery about that going in because I'm not a fan of Jimmy Dore. I think he's misogynist, and I think he's horrible, and he's just a comedian. And, I was saying that, that could be problematic because Jimmy Dore's so toxic. If you're going to build a party, you have to be inclusive to a lot of people. I was reassured that Jimmy wouldn't be a problem. Nick wouldn't be a problem. Let's take everything that happened away from Zana. I have never been so disrespected in organizing spaces. Like Occupy Congress, he was bragging about how we organized so well. Nick didn't organize. So he called his buddies. He had celebrities come in, didn't have places for people to stay. As an organizer, you guys probably know this. When you get people together, you have them a ride from the airport. You make sure they have a place to stay. None of that was organized. I told him I wanted a room to myself. As an organizer, women should have to choose. He literally put me in a room with Jackson Hinkle, even after I told him not. Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Part of my is because there was no rooms. He expected everybody during that Occupy Congress not to go to bed. He wanted us to stay 2 or 3 days out at the Capitol. I went to the hotel room, which was just a hub he told me I could sleep there just for people to go to the bathroom, people in and out while I was going to sleep. Jackson Hinkle was finally sleeping in the floor, and he threw Jackson in the room with me. Jackson didn't do anything. He was totally respectful. But, you do not do organizers that way. And he is so rude, condescending, and anything to get Nick in front of a camera, that's all it's about. Outside of that, I was on my way out anyway, despite everything else that happened, because what part of my responsibilities was fundraise. And I went to the board and told them, until this is settled, I'm not making any more phone calls. I'm not going to ask somebody to give up their lunch money so we can have a Nick show. And that's basically what it was from my experience.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's like if you have family coming in from out of town, you know what I mean? What do? You just you just like, oh yeah, I'll just throw you in this, you know what I mean? I'll throw you out here to the wolves with somebody else. No, you know what I mean? You wouldn't treat your family like that. Why would you treat people that you are, you know what I mean? You're in some kind of, you're in an alliance with, why would you treat them that way? And I think that's where women are different. Women are different when it comes to that. Just because, a lot of us, we are used to, doing things in our household. If we had a guest coming into our house, you know what I mean? You're going to try to accommodate them as much as you can, because that's what you do. That's crazy that he just threw you in with Jackson Hinkle. That must have been awkward and weird. No matter what you think about the guy, you know what I mean? Just a young guy, and that's just not right.
Yeah, Jackson did. It was uncomfortable for me, and Jackson didn't want to be in the room sleeping with Grandma either. In the other bed, it was just really uncomfortable. You don't do people like that. And I've seen there's a lot of good organizers, not just women, that take care of people. Even when we were out at New York at AOC's office, Nick didn't even think about getting people water, and it being so hot. And there was no helping him organize. When we pulled up, we had Susan Sarandon in New York We pulled up and Nick was literally changing his shirt. We were 30 minutes late. Told me to get out of the front seat of the car, and Nick had to fix his hair while people had been waiting in the heat for us for 30 minutes already. But Nick had to fix his hair and change his clothes in the car with people waiting on us after we were late because of him.
What?
I just,
Wow.
Wow.
it's, I've never, out of all my years of organizing, worked in a space so toxic. And it's a disservice. I don't know what's going on with Dr. West, but it's a disservice to anybody that's running for office if they're affiliated with People's Party. You know, I'm not dismissing what happened with Zaina, but Nick is very, very toxic. It's very Nick centered. And it's all about Nick getting on a camera. I mean, he literally would push himself even into, we would organize national calls and we started trying to do a podcast with People's Party. And Nick had to make sure he was on every show. Every time a camera's around, that's all he lives for. And that's all People's Party is a show for Nick and to make money for Nick. That's all it is. I promise you that on my grandson's life because I lived it. I've seen it and it's terrible.
Yeah, he's basically the face. Like, he's the face of MPP. And I remember even when me and Joe were in it, we was trying to like get him to actually have more of our faces be a part of trying to, you know, show the public like we're about literally the people. I mean, that's the point of a people's party, right? To be about the people, is not be about one guy. And Nick Brana, I mean, to even what Paula Jean said, narcissistic behavior was Nick Brana. Even before, you know, when they, you know, before they came in and all that stuff, we experienced that kind of stuff, but it wasn't like we had any, you know, it wasn't like on the ground because MPP really started more on the social media, you know, and videos and all that kind of stuff. But it was levels of toxicity like that in our Slack workspace where it was just allowed. Sexism was allowed, racism was allowed, homophobia was allowed, transphobia was allowed. It was, that stuff was allowed and never moderated, never monitored like it was supposed to be monitored. And even though they had like this group called the Regenerative Circle, which was supposed to be like the judicial arm of MPP, they was rendered to being like not even useful because Nick Brana himself had demoted them from a working group, which is like a more bigger committee, to a circle, which is just more of a grouping in the organization. And that was one of the things we brought up in our petition that Joe had talked about earlier. Um, we literally had a group of people form themselves like a union inside of MPP. So I was part of the petitioners group. Joe was a part of the petitioners group. Those who know Renee Johnston, she was also part of that petitioners group. In fact, I was the elected secretary of this petitioners group. So literally, we were structured democratically in our little petitioners group, which was felt more like a union of volunteers, hub coordinators, you know, just leaders and you know, and activists and stuff. We all just came together and said, the problems that continue to rise, we don't want to have continue for the sake of the organization because we wanted the organization to live. Well, Nick and his national coordinator circle put if you want to fill in the blank, they basically was like an Amazon or a Starbucks C-suite, and they always retaliated against us. They will future fake us. So even when we tried to good faith have, you know, bargaining type meetings, they would brush us off. When we needed a formal answer to our petition, they put a post on Slack and said, well, that was our response. I said, no, 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 no. I told my petition group, I said, we need a formal document that is a response to our petition, an actual document. And it took them like pretty much a month to get us that after faking to have meeting with us, future faking to have meetings with us. And so when you talk about January, because this happened in December, the same time, the same month that the whole Dr. Cornel West and Jimmy Dore was added to the MPP Advisory Council. In January, they finally had their first, out of the whole time I was in the organization, all volunteer meeting. You know how Nick ran that meeting? Like it wasn't like important. he was trying to rush people. Like, we had all these questions we wanted to ask the national coordinator circle. And of course, it got to a point where Nick was like appalled, that, we was having all these questions and want to have all this deep discussion, and was doing all kinds of attempts to cut that meeting short. So he was doing like cult leader stuff and trying to like, silence everyone on everything and like, look, y'all just need to get back to work. Stop worrying about what's going on in the organization. That kind of stuff. And so the purge happened. Now, this is where I'm going to back up Renee, because I was on that particular 500 plus reply thread where there was a discussion about the inward pass and class reductionism. My as I call him, my anti-racism white brother, who I still am friends with to this day, out of Philadelphia, he got caught up in this inward pass class reductionism discussion where these two older white guys, were like trolling him. So I just stepped up to back him up and be like, y'all need to stop, blah blah blah. Just trying to get them to like calm down and leave him alone. Well, that went into my time. I'm a Pacific Standard Time. That went into about 1 to 2 a.m. But the thread was like over 500 plus replies. When I woke up the next day, and this was actually a week after my stepdad passed away from COPD and COVID. He came, and this was also my sorority's Founders Day, because that's why I remember the date exactly, January 13th, 2021. I was kicked off of Slack. I went on to try to do what I normally do, get the information, et cetera, and I couldn't get back on. And so I kept wondering to myself, I said, am I the only one this happened to? Because why can't I get back on? And so I went to my petitioners group where we had our communications, and come to find out I wasn't the only one that was what we call today purged from NPP.
The great purge.
We were literally the purge. Like, if you ever hear the purge, there was actually more than one purge, but we were part of the very first one. So he purged people that even had nothing to do with that 500 thread. But guess who he kept though? He kept the two racist, class reductionist white guys that me and that person, the anti-racist white dude, were in communications and back and forth on those topics about. They got to stay in the Slack workspace. We got removed. Just so you can get a sense of what happened. And then I wasn't the only quote Black person that was kicked out of NPP. There was like about 7 or so others that, like I said, had nothing to do with it, but they were kicked out the same day. The same exact day as me in time. And so when I went back to my petitions group, it was kind of like, oh man, what we gonna do? Because we didn't understand where we are. I mean, we got kicked out of the organization unjustly. We didn't get a hearing. We didn't get to defend ourselves. There was nothing judicial to possibly do any kind of reconciliation or anything, because we were just kicked out. And so we were back and forth about going to the media about our side of things. But at the same time, there was a concerted effort to do a smear campaign about the petitioners group on Slack, which is what jump-started Nick going around the media talking about our petitioners group, and we're up there, we're siphoners, and we're trying to make people go to the Democratic Party and all this kind of stuff. I left the Democratic Party to come into this. I'm not trying to siphon people to go into them. What the heck you mean by that? And so it was a lot of that. And then we ultimately decided to go to the media. If everybody knows about Frank Analysis, that's a Franco on Twitter. He has his own podcast. He was the first person to actually knew him before he had a podcast. So he was like my Twitter friend. And it was weird having to go to him to talk about what happened to me. Renee had to literally go and say, you should go get Camila's side. This is what happened to her. And then he was like, I'm going to have y'all on the platform. Y'all get to talk about your side. I mean, for real, like when you talk about the levels of trauma and stuff coming out of MPP. Like, we're not lying about that. We were hurt. We were harmed. We were like damaged by the Branas. And we've been trying to recover from that ever since. And it just feels like with this Dr. Cornel West thing popping back up, it's like the scab came right back off. From all the healing work we've been trying to do individually or as a group. I mean, shout out to the MPP petitioners, follow them on Twitter. That's my family. Like, I don't play with that group. Like, you talk mess about that group, like, I don't play. And then with Zaina and Paula basically in solidarity with us, eventually. I was so happy when they came and was like, look, we back y'all up 100%, stuff like that. Because I didn't like what was happening with them. All that stuff was all the word of what was happening with them was coming back to us, the petitioners. Like, are y'all gonna say something? I'm like, we'll try. I mean, we'll reach out, but I mean, we can only do what we can do, So.
And to Camila's point, with feeling like the scab was pulled, not even pulled, yanked off. I started going through all of my receipts, and I found the screenshot where Annalise Garcia and Jackson Hinkle were using it on her show to say, that we were targeting, like we were going to do something malicious to Cornel West and Susan Sarandon. It's like, no, the only thing we were trying to do was reach out to them and let them know that this is going on and internally within MPP, because they were on the advisory board. We managed to get Ryan Knight to recuse himself from the advisory board. It took a lot of doing, but he finally listened to us. And I like Camila. I very distinctly remember my purge, because everybody was like, Joe, how are you still in there? How are you still in there? Because I was like, I don't know how I stayed alive as long as I did, but it was February 8th at 11:50 p.m. When I got kicked out because I was pushing back against Thomas Royko on Twitter. And they said that I was being malicious and that I launched a full-out assault against MPP on social media, and that, I even had Marvin Street say on a Discord that he was right to help get me removed from People's Party because I was displaying malicious intent. I got a screenshot of that, and so and then I have the video where he's saying that the way forward was siphoning people to the revolution within, which was siphoning people to the Democratic Party. And I'm just like, it felt like I was in this freaking bizarro world, Twilight Zone meets the Outer Limits or something. And, so all of a sudden, my access to Slack was removed. I was removed from Action Network. I was removed from the base camp. Everything was removed. I had to have somebody from the disability circle that still was standing in there to send me a screenshot of what lies Tiffany had told the circle for my removal. And I still have that screenshot. So I'm just like, don't mess with people. Don't mess with me and Camila, because we have the receipts. And we'll bring them every time when it comes to dealing with Nick and People's Party. And
I publicly really want to apologize to Zaina and Paula G. If it seemed like I was just crazy, off the hinge, whatever. But I was like, I didn't want y'all to go through what we went through. And, and I know sometimes you got to let people you care about or that you have genuine, intent, to have to go through that to understand where we were coming from. But honestly, I didn't want to. I wasn't trying to be annoying or malicious or nothing. Like I really just wanted y'all to understand what you both were in and what you was going to have to deal with, especially with Nick Brana and his daddy.
I think that that's a really important point that you're making is that sometimes we know that we need to speak up when people are being abusive, when people are being, just completely out of control. And we know other people are going to go through this, because what happens then is that if we don't speak up, and we don't say enough is enough and this abuse is happening, then more people are going to go through it. And more people are going to go through it, and then they dismiss it as, oh, it's drama, or it's this, or it's that. And they put all these labels on it. And then these people get ostracized. I have been basically very ostracized from, anybody in independent media, because I speak the truth, and I'm nonpartisan in this. I don't have, I don't have a political ambition. I don't have ambitions to become like somebody that has 100,000 followers. That's not why I do what I do. I care about the truth, and I care about supporting people and finding the truth. And I feel like a lot of times people will just downplay things and say that it's drama, or it's this, or it's that, when it's really, or I don't want to get involved. And sometimes we need to listen to each other, and we need to understand, and we need to maybe we're like, all right, well, I'm still gonna feel this out for myself, but I acknowledge what you've been through. And then that way the person sees those red flags, so that they don't go and they don't get harmed in it. And sometimes we're just like, oh yeah, well, someone had an issue and we're stubborn and we have to go figure it out ourselves, right? I mean, we do that too as people, I will admit it. I've been there where I'm like, oh, well, other people have had issues with this person, but I'm going to give them a chance. You know what I mean? And sometimes maybe you come to terms with the fact that person is definitely more of an abusive person or something in a shorter period of time, because somebody did give you that heads up. You know what I mean? And that is one way that we do need to support each other, and we need to make sure that our intentions on it we aren't coming from a place where we're trying to cause harm or drama, but we bring our receipts, right? Mm-hmm. Make sure we have our receipts. Always have your receipts to what you're saying, because it clears the air. You know what I mean? Just make sure that you're just, if something's going on with you, the audience, everybody, just take a screenshot. Try to, you know what I mean? Try to document things, because there is a lot of people that are very malicious in this space. And there are people that, it's really hard to know that people are who they are and you don't have a receipt to prove it. Right? Mm-hmm. You're like, I know that this person is being deceitful to their whole entire audience, or just in general, but I can't break confidentiality to tell people. I'm not going to break somebody's, you know what I mean? What somebody comes to me privately and tells me. I'm not going to do that just to try to you know what I mean? Inform other people on somebody. And it puts you in a position where it's without having something concrete, that person's going to get away with something that might harm other people. And it's a really and you don't, just me being a woman, I've always stood up for, just especially women and children. And that's just always been my focus. I'm a mom, and, I've been abused and I've been in awful situations. So it's very triggering when that kind of thing happens, and we need to support each other. We have to learn to at least listen, support each other, take things as they are, and take evidence as it is, and I think that that's a really important thing to do in this space, because we can't continue, because these abusive people, will continue to be abusive people, and they will continue to keep doing this until they have gone through every last person that will possibly allow, right? And it's a really hard place to talk about your, you know what I mean, to talk about what's happened to you, and but you want to show support, you know what I mean, like we have to find balance in that. But I think it's really amazing that you guys are speaking up and giving so much background to what's happened behind the scenes, because it's eye-opening to me to kind of hear like the different, like, you know, you guys went through all these very similar things, and then to know like what I observed from the outside looking in, it's like, oh, that makes sense. Like it puts those pieces together where it's like, oh, that makes complete sense. And like none of you ladies have anything in this. Like there's nothing.
No.
You're not going to win anything by by bringing this truth, right? Because it doesn't, it's not going to benefit you. We're the ones that get attacked for speaking the truth, and it happens over and over and over again. And we need to stop allowing, you know, whether it's a male or a female or whatever, like, you know what I mean, we just need to stop allowing abusive behavior in these spaces and stop letting people cover for people who are predators. You know what I mean? Like there is a lot of predators in these spaces, and they target the people that they know are going to be more vulnerable. Like they do that on purpose. Like they can find us.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Zainab keeps getting dropped out. I think it's because of the computer. I want her to be able to speak with us too.
Yeah, because I mean, I really do want to, you know, hear more also from, you know, Apology and Zainab, because I mean, like I said, they came in after we left out, and so I mean, hearing about some of the things that were like technically on the ground and outside of the online stuff, because what people don't understand about Movement for People's Party or People's Party is that most of their so-called work is online.
There she is.
Welcome back.
We were just saying you're having computer issues.
Online. It's on Twitter. It's on like your Facebook. It's on like YouTube. You know, stuff like that. It's not an actual on the ground operation. That's what People's Party is not something that's on the ground. It's something that's on cyberspace or the internet. You know, and so I mean, people got to understand what Dr. Cornel West, for however way it happened, signed up himself to. And like I said, like Dr. Cornel West never came to any of our circles, didn't come to disabilities, didn't come to the Black Voter Circle, never talked to any volunteers from my awareness, you know, who were actually inside of the organization. And we tried to reach out to him, but he scoffed us off, you know, as a distraction even then. Mm-hmm. And so even with the Green Party, I mean, like I'm part of the what we call in the Green Party, we call our leadership board steering committees. And so I'm actually a part of the National Black Caucus Steering Committee, and I have never got any kind of, we haven't gotten any kind of talking to from Dr. Cornel West so far. And we're the quote Black people in the Green Party. So, you know what I mean? Like this dismissiveness from him and saying, oh, we need to stop worrying about these conflicts in these organizations. I'm like, but you're trying to run through my organization. And you're dismissing all of us as volunteers for your little coalition campaign or whatever. That's not going to fly. It's not going to fly.
So Zainab, I wanted to give you a chance to fill us in too with Paula Jean, what you guys have, you know what I mean, kind of picking up like from after they left, and like, you know, just the climate of how that happened.
I keep logging back on. I don't know if you guys can hear me. I think I'm having some technical difficulties, and it keeps cycling me in and out. I don't know if I've been dropping or if I've been sitting there or.
No, it's dropped you out a couple of times. I keep adding you back when it pops back on. It might be what
you guys can hear.
What
me
are you
okay?
using as your browser? What browser are you using? Sometimes it drops depending on the browser.
Chrome, which is what I always use.
Okay.
So
I think that's what StreamYard prefers.
I may not be able to talk. I may have to go join and chat on YouTube if that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, if it drops you out, then
Yeah, I may
you know.
have to join you guys in chat and not on video because I don't think this is working, and I don't want to disrupt any more.
Yeah, it keeps freezing you.
That's weird.
Yeah, because I can't
Maybe
hear you all
is
or
it better with
anything.
just
But
the
I love
audio
you
instead of
guys.
the camera?
Problems.
Oh, is it better with the audio instead of the camera?
I don't know what's going on, but I will see you guys in chat. And I love y'all.
Yeah, sometimes if you turn the camera off, and just stay that way,
I
it
think it's
works.
just that I'm using it at 12-year-old computer.
That could be it too. What about keeping off the camera like that? Like just staying with your avatar? Will that work?
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would love to hear some like where things
I
kind of
think
like
it's still cycling.
is it?
Yeah,
We need to
I
do a
think I'm
fundraiser
about, like,
drive for
20
a new
seconds
laptop for Zaina.
on everything that's being said right now.
I mean, we can hear you well. I mean, you seem to be fine.
Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can now, I think.
Okay. Well, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Well, Paula can go first, and then I could see how this goes. See if I
Okay.
can stick on or if I
Well,
need to
Zane, I've
hop
already
off.
said
'Cause
a
I,
lot.
like I said, I just don't want to be disruptive.
I'm just kind of waiting to hear from your voice. I do want to say to Kamala, all the from the Black People Circle and all the petitioners, I've said it before, but I do want to offer an apology. And accountability is important, and accountability starts with ourselves. And, you know, as an activist throughout the years, and I'm not making excuses for myself, but you're on Twitter, you know how people can get dramatic. And when I went in and I asked a lot of questions about that, I was hearing from Nick, oh, well, we publicly apologized. None of this stuff happened. They're just trolls. And so, you know, I was there filling everything out and I was bombarded all at once. And then, you know, it quickly I found out. But, you know, I'm sorry I ever run with the Democratic Party. I'm especially sorry that I ever got involved with the People's Party. But I'm especially sorry for any harm that I caused by being with People's Party and being associated with that. And if I did harm anybody, I am very sorry.
That's beautiful. That is just beautiful. That, you know, like I just feel like there's a lot of healing happening tonight. You know, like really, you know, it just shows that we can overcome this shit. Like we don't need to let toxic people drag us down. You know, we can overcome this shit together.
Well, I learned as an organizer, we don't always have to agree. And you know, I've got some, you know, some people that I've had, you know, built relationships with for years and organized with. They don't tell you, me and her don't always get along, but you know, the people that I organize and respect the most is the people that you can have the hard conversations with, and first and foremost, hold each other accountable, because that's what's important. Because people are literally dying and starving in this country, and people are really suffering. One of my mentors said, "There's no battle between us bigger than the battle before us," and the battle before us are the people like Joe Manchin and Nick Brana. And Nick Brana does not deserve any space in this movement. It's not a people's party; it's a Nick party, and it's disgusting.
And I want to say too that, you know, I respect Zaina and Paula Jean because I was in BNC when we ran Paula Jean against Joe Manchin, and I helped with the opposition research for her campaign, and so it did throw me for a loop when Zaina and Paula Jean jumped on the People's Party bandwagon, because I was just like, okay, well, we'll see how long they last. And I was really, I was genuinely shocked when I found out that Nick did what he did to Zaina. And, you know, I knew he was a sleazy, disgusting person, but I didn't know he was that bad. But, you know, I'm just glad that more and more people are waking up to what's going on with this organization, and more of us are becoming unified against this grift, because it is a grift. Everything that Nick does is for Nick and Rod, and that's it. It's not about the people at all.
Yeah, I think that we would see a much different, you know, it would have been a much different outcome, like within, you know what I mean, your experiences, like what you ladies have experienced, and like what we're outwardly seeing. You know what I mean? If it wasn't just about an ego and about, you know what I mean, doing what they want for themselves, then we would see it would be much different. It would be clear. It would be very clear, and we wouldn't be able to say the, you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't be able to have receipts and have the accuracy and explain the things the way that they've happened. You know, like that just wouldn't be there if it wasn't genuine, you know, movement.
I want to say this because I don't think, you know, Zaina's gone. I was really hoping that we could hear from her, but you know, I just want to say this publicly for everybody that's on Twitter that's just gave her a hard time. You know, that could be your daughter, that could be your sister, that could be your mom. And I can't imagine what she's went through and dealt with the scrutiny that she has. Personally, for me, I had to take a break from the movement for a while to recover from what happened with the People's Party and witnessing especially what happened to Zaina, what happened to Sabrina, being attacked like she was, and the other people that was attacked in the People's Party. But I think the most I think about is one person that people are not thinking about, and that's Zaina's daughter. She witnessed a lot of things. She overheard a lot of things. And, you know, Zaina has a mom. She has a brother. You know, that whole family has been through the trauma of this. You know, I ran for office. I've dealt with the death threats. I've had, you know, my family's dealt with the threats on my family, the scrutiny. I went into that knowing that that was going to happen. It's still it's too much for anybody. But, you know, when you want to say something to Zaina and blame Zaina just because, you know, she didn't intend for that to happen. No woman never intends for that to happen. You can gaslight and say, why'd she stay? Why'd she date him? You know, domestic violence is complex and there's reasons why. And Nick is very, very manipulative. But her daughter, especially, can see the stuff that's being said. Her family can see the stuff that's being said. And whether you believe Zaina or not, there's I think everybody needs to think about a little bit of human decency and think about Zaina and her family when you're saying things that you do to her on Twitter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for saying that, because it really does, it really brings that human aspect to it. You know what I mean? It brings that back to, you know, like when you're talking about somebody and you're saying something about their trauma and the things that they've been through, like that's not just them. You know, like that's also their family. It's also their children. It's something that sticks with people, and you know, it's really not okay. I've seen some of the ways that people have attacked her, and I'm just like, I'm just like, I get floored and just like disgusted. Like I can't believe that is how people decide to, you know, to react in such an awful way. There she is.
Hey guys,
Did you hear
I
us?
tried a new browser. I think this might work.
Yay!
Perfect timing.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what the deal was.
No, it's fine. Paula was just reminding everybody that, when people attack you and they hurt you, that they're also attacking, your family and your daughter, and there's a ripple effect to that. And that matters. So, she was just saying that, and I think that's so important to remember, is that it's not just, what I mean? It doesn't just affect the person. You're not just, you know what I mean? And you're an actual person with feelings, like you're a human being, and as thick as we can be, and as much as we can brush off, we still are humans with feelings, and it's not okay to do that. It's not okay to do that to people's families, and we just speak up for that.
I'm hearing something similar. I'm hearing something similar now to what I thought when I joined MPP. I had long talks with Renee. Actually, I even brought Renee in to talk to, who was it? It was one of the advisory members after everything happened. And Nick had me write I wrote, because I said that if they were going to mend fences, that we had to talk to people and we had to write an apology. So they issued an apology. I found out months later that they took it down like a couple hours later, and I had no idea, because at that point I wasn't on the Twitter yet, and I was in the Slack, so I saw the apology in Slack, but they took it down from Twitter. They didn't keep it up. He was supposed to apologize on Door, and it was just a wishy-washy apology. Oh, we lost Paula.
Yeah, she's still. I still see her down in the green room. Oh, I think she's
Wait a
still
minute,
here.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, Paula. Thought we'd lost you. I was like, I'm here now. Paula's gone. But it was naive, and it was dumb. And sometimes I think back, I was taking a bath when Joe Sheree called me or messaged me. I think messaged me on Twitter, and I just remember it. And right after that, I talked to my friend Emily, and then I talked to Renee later. And Renee said, well, do what you got to do. I love you no matter what. Maybe you can do some good, but I'm afraid that they're going to hurt you in the long run. And she wasn't wrong. So I remember one time, they kept up the shenanigans. One time they wrote something in Slack about Camila and Renee, and I shut that down and I removed the person that wrote that. But I could start seeing what you guys were going through, a little bit after Paula joined, and then I regretted even, calling her when Nick and them were trying to get her on. But that's what, I would tell people. If you think, I hear people saying right now, I can go in and, we can change it and we can make a difference. No, like, we've been there. We've done that. You guys weren't even the first purges. There were 3 other purges before y'all. There's been like 5 purges, and I think 6 now, because I think that there was one recently at the People's Party. People, anytime they get close to a state, being a state, to be able to get ballot access or organizing outside of their circle, they will kick people out. It's called founder syndrome. It's like not wanting anyone else to get for organizing, you got to open it up for people to be able to do the work, and you got to trust them to do the work. You can't strong arm this. But it's also narcissism, and it's also using the platform to go out and do something really shiny and flashy, then make a bunch of money off of it, as far as donations. That's what the People's Party has done forever. And I'm sorry I didn't listen to you guys when you tried to warn us. And I'm sorry to Paula that I played God awful. But the retaliation was really intense. We had a really, really intense retaliation for about 2.5 months. And it was probably similar to some of the things you guys went through. Name calling. Nick sent his flying monkeys around to gaslight us. They already started calling us infiltrators before like any of that even happened. So those were red flags. They started saying we were trying to seat Democrats at every level of the institution. We're like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yes.
She said that.
It happened to us. So you basically confirmed, like, because it happened like with this first purge. Like they once that happened, and I was kicked out along with Renee and other folks. They started doing that smear campaign, and that was the actual words. We were siphoning volunteers. We were infiltrators for the Democratic Party. We were being paid by Democrats to be an MPP. Like MPP was actually a real thing. Anyway, and and stuff. I mean, it was the same scripts and smearing us as what you described. Exactly, it was exactly that.
Yeah,
It's just crazy because you
And
guys
it's
are both.
insane.
You
Like,
guys didn't talk beforehand. Like
No.
you guys weren't even in the same group chats like that we were talking about doing the show. I just was like, hey Zainab, like we're gonna do this and I would love you to help because you've been, you were part of the party. Like you guys weren't even in communication. And that's amazing.
This is the first time that I'm hearing Zaina's like real side, like of what was organizationally going on after we all left. So I'm just like, I'm stunned, just as much as you are. Like, as I really wanted to listen to her, like, what would happen?
And I'm glad that Paula Jean also had shared some of the nitty gritty about what
Nick did this thing,
happening.
where he was like, "Oh, go ahead, Paula."
Oh, I'm here. I'm just trying to get my camera back on. I don't know what's going on. Y'all go ahead. I'm trying to get back to where I was.
Okay.
Okay, here I am. All right. Hi.
Oh, somebody was speaking. Maybe it was Joe.
Yeah, I was just saying that I'm glad that Paula shared some of her experiences. So, because I'm like, it just couldn't have happened to just Camila and I. Some of the sleaze that we encountered, it had to have happened to other people. And it happened to Zaina and Paula on a very personal, in-your-face manner. And I mean, when I think that nothing that Nick can do or say shocks me, more revelations come out, and it just knocks my socks off even more.
Yeah, it's amazing to get all this behind the scenes, and then like you got and literally like Paula and Zainab aren't in the chat that I'm in with the other two ladies, so like they weren't even like in communication about this panel at all. Like I was just like, hey, we're gonna do this, like do you guys want to join? Like that was it. There wasn't a whole lot of discussion beforehand, and so it's really amazing when you guys are able to corroborate the same exact thing without there being any it's not like there wasn't any plan on this conversation.
I honestly did not know like all this. Like so when Zaina brought that up, and then you saw the dots basically connected, it shocked me too. I mean, and I went through it just like when they went through it, but it was after I left, so I didn't know that was still going on. After we all left. Because I mean, like I said, we were part of this wave of volunteers that came in from the People's Convention, and then that basically got sabotaged, and just imploded on everyone. Because I mean, basically from the end of August when the People's Convention happened to November when the petition started circulating and all that stuff, that's a short turnaround to have like rising problems to the point where they are literally systemic level, to where the organization could possibly be no more if it does not get fixed, if none of these things get handled and taken care of. And that's what happened. Like it was just gross negligence from Nick Brana and that at the time National Coordinator Circle. I know it changed to a different name after we left that top tier, but it was that top down structure that a lot of us in these circles tend to talk about, like on Twitter or stuff like that. I mean, when the People's Convention happened, they was actually promoting a horizontal structure. Of course, I guess that was curb appeal because once we got in, I mean, it was not that. And some people like quit. There were some people who were quit. They weren't purged. There were people who quit because they were seeing writings on the wall that a lot of us didn't see. And that included like some of our other petitioners, like Lisa, who she quit MPP. Like she wasn't purged like I was, or like Joe was. She quit. She was like, I'm out of here. So it's different experiences from different sides of this, but concretely, like everybody just needs to be aware that MPP, the People's Party, is a scam and cult organization that we don't advise anyone join, anybody give any money to. Just find something else. Find, the Green Party, find Socialist Alternative, find something that's better.
Mutual aid,
Mutual aid. I follow Finney, who's out of Washington, D.C. She's an activist, but she also does a lot of mutual aid. So I mean, just find the good folks. Like, go on a wild search. I don't care how wild, to find the good people on the independent left, because like you said, Lucky, like there's been a lot of manipulators, a lot of predators, a lot of narcissists like Nick Brana, scam artists. I mean,
it's gotten so toxic. It's so toxic, and it's going to destroy all of us. It's going to destroy the entire everything that we everything that we've just worked for individually as people, and everything that we try to collectively do. If we do not squash this toxicity, it will engulf us. It will take us down. And I'm just not willing to just let that happen. I'm just really not. I'm like, we need to find the truth. We need to speak the truth. We need to say sorry when we're like, when we do something, like just be accountable to ourselves as much as we hold each other accountable, and understand that we're not always going to agree on everything. And that's okay. I don't agree with my partner Steve on everything. Like, that's okay. But like, I actually had lefties like come at me and try to literally cancel me because they didn't agree with me. And I'm just like, you literally have an effort to really get me canceled, and then privately go and DM people and try to get me canceled because you don't agree with me on something that you didn't even talk to me about. Like, what are you talking about? This is not good. This isn't helpful. It's not going to get us anywhere. It's not. It makes me go, wow. Like, what the hell? Like, what is going on here? This is just toxic,
And this is what I appreciate about, folks like Zaina and Paula Jean, who actually are very well versed in a lot of things that I didn't even know. I mean, like, I didn't know about founder syndrome. I said, there was a term for that? I mean, I experienced all the, but I was like, there's a term? I need to go do some homework on this, because, I mean, yeah, because this is what we experience. I mean, even like with the criticisms of the Green Party, which, if you want to even segue into that, I'm on the organizational side of the Green Party. I'm part of the people, the segment of people that are actually lost in this whole like Cornel West running green, thing. Like, when that whole Breonna Joy Gray question was asked at the worker strike back event in New York, basically it was similar to how I found out about Dr. Cornel West getting on the MPP advisory board, on the advisory council. We didn't know in the organization, and when MPP with the People's Party, I was actually in what we call the Media and Messaging Working Group, and we were literally under NDAs to where we couldn't talk about anything unless it was already out in the public. So we had to know about it first internally before, we could talk about it publicly. But we couldn't talk about it publicly until it was out. So when it came to Dr. Cornel West and Jimmy Dore, literally this was the Christmas party in 2020, right before our Christmas break, that our top person, Carol Earl, who was also on the national coordinator circle as well, But she ran our working group like it was a little cult dictatorship thing. She said during our party, she's like, "Oh, I think Jimmy Dore is going to talk about MPP. Let's see what he's going to say," as if she didn't know what he was going to say, which was funny because that's why I was like, okay, I'm lost. I don't know what she's talking about, so I'm waiting to hear. And then that's when they brought up that Dr. Cornel West and Jimmy Dore was going to be on his MPP advisory council, and they were launching this thing. Or at least the first project of Jimmy Dore was to launch this force the vote thing. We knew nothing about it, nothing about them joining the MPP advisory council or that force the vote thing internally in MPP. So I had a shock on my face when I was watching that in real time.
Wow, so you're getting the information on a stream about things that are happening from within your party.
It's like us, like just being like regular folks watching Jimmy Dore show, and we finding out that this is happening. These two projects or these two like announcements, and we knew nothing about it prior.
That's crazy. And remember, there was like that soft push for them to like run Jimmy Dore as a candidate.
No plan to do some kind of back end in response to it. There was no, oh well, when this rolls out, then we should do this to promote it. Blah blah blah. We knew nothing. We got the news when everybody else got the news. So
oh my God.
The same thing happened with Dr. Cornel West running green. When everybody was viraling out that video from Brianna Joy Gray asking Chris Hedges about the whole MPP run for president and all that kind of stuff. And he did this whole quote unquote leak, which I don't believe it was a real leak. I
don't think so either. I think it was all intentional. The whole thing. The entire thing.
No, he planned.
The whole thing. So us in the Green Party, that's how we found out about this so-called meeting that he was having with Dr. Jill Stein and Njamu Baraka. Now, mind you, Jill Stein and Njamu Baraka are not involved in the organizational side of the Green Party. These are just kind of your like spokespeople, figureheads that used to run. They ran in 2016, so everybody knows them as the primary, winners. And they ran in the general election in 2000.
Yeah, that's their association with the Green Party. Then, okay,
that's just their association with the Green Party. Just so we're clear, like this whole I was talking with the Green Party. No, you was talking with Jill Stein and Njamu Baraka, who are not in the organizational side of the Green Party. So they were supposedly everybody are friends. So you was talking a little friend thing,
right?
And and so what Chris
Kamala
said,
can I weigh in real quick?
Oh, go ahead, because I got more to say, but go ahead. Go ahead, Zay.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I think that they were just gonna throw some big names around, and those big names were what they were gonna draw the flashy off of. And all of Machine Rally, and that's one reason that I don't trust it.
It's the MPP playbook. That's what I've been saying. I've been trying to get people to understand on Twitter. I'm like, this is the MPP playbook through Chris Hedges and Dr. Cornel West. Remember what these people came out of. And they was peddling this whole he's running MPP thing for one whole week. Before it was like, oh, he's switching to green. We about to have a meeting to try to switch him to green. Okay. Well, like I said, us in the organization, we knew nothing about this. They was having backdoor conversations, phone calls, whatever. Basically, according to Dr. Jill Stein, because she even said on Black Power Media that she was taken aback by the Amy Goodman Democracy Now interview with Dr. Cornel West, and I guess she felt like she had to do something to rectify the situation. I mean, I'm just like, okay, ma'am, like what? So us in the organization, we knew nothing. So of course, He's been on media tour. Dr. Cornel West has been on media tour, yapping. Now it's like he's going from MPP to Green Party, yapping. And there's no receipts backing this up, right? So in comes that whole controversial FEC filing with Nick Browner. Well, he sent it out. He sent out the form number 2 because there's obviously a couple forms you have to do with the FEC to kind of seem legit. This form number 2 with Nick Browner went out to the FEC on the 9th of June, right? And then it was processed by the FEC on the 13th of June. Okay, so in the meanwhile, Dr. Cornel West is going around, I'm running green, I got for the nomination of the Green Party, So, playbook. Okay. So we're, of course, like I said, in the Green Party, I started alarm bells like this is some suspect behavior with Dr. Jill Stein. I don't know, and Jamu Baraka. I don't know what's going on. Anybody have an idea? Because remember, the donate page on the Cornel West 2024 website, initially the P.O. box for all the donations, like if you were sending even though it's the old school way, but if you were sending like a check, or some kind of money order or something to the campaign, it was the Browners that were getting it. It was Nick Browner and his daddy getting that money, right? And so not too long after that, okay, there was this switch to a Dallas, Texas P.O. box.
Yeah.
Okay? Of course, the alarm bells were going off. What is this? What is happening? We need to get ahead of this. Come to find out, Dr. Jill Stein, this woman, decided to go to the Texas State Green Party, the State Green Party in Texas, to create a transition committee, right, to basically give a base to the Cornel West 2024 campaign. Because people seem to assume that, Dr. Cornel West had people. No, he didn't. He had nobody. He had his friends. He had just that. And Jamu Baraka and Chris Hedges. That's it. So he decided
you see what Chad said right here too? Jill Stein for president campaign is still raising money since 2016.
There's receipts on the FEC website backing up Chad. I'm telling you that right now.
So and these people are still taking people's money. Like
right. I also know the guy who is the treasurer of that, Jill Stein for president. There's backstory with that because he's like my fellow delegate from the Black voter circle. So when I said that there's something with Jill Stein and Black men, I'm like, there's got to be something there. Like, there's just got to be. But anyway, so that P.O. box, I mysteriously, I was like, this is the new mystery? Because it was like, why did it switch from the Virginia address with People's Party to this P.O. box in Dallas, Texas, of all places? I was like, if you're going to start a campaign out of the Green Party, and try to make it like legitimate, I would think that they would choose a state like Ohio, because Ohio has a strong Green Party state party. And if you're gonna, do something on the ground to try to get signatures or whatever and do all that kind of stuff, you start in a place like that, especially the Midwest. Ohio was like a key battleground state. Those are swing voters you need. You would think you would start there. Nah, we're starting in Texas, a state that you don't think, you would think they ain't got a heck of a chance of winning, or a heck of a chance of getting like 5% of the vote in that state alone, let alone the nation. So that was the weird part for me. On top of, I was like, okay, so where is this box? Well, the husband of the treasurer of the state party outed her in the organization and said, there's this transition committee led by Dr. Jill Stein that she just got elected my wife got elected to be the treasurer of. I said, so excuse me, wait a minute. So the current GP Texas state treasurer is the official campaign treasurer of the Cornel West 2024 campaign. And this is my first primary, so I don't know all the legalese, but I never, even when I was a Democrat, I don't recall a state party.
I love that. I don't recall.
I don't recall a state party doing a whole campaign for somebody that especially is outside of the organization. I mean, Dr. Cornel West is not a registered Green voter, and Dr. Cornel West is not obviously a organizational member of the Green Party. So why is this happening through the Texas Greens?
And the primary's not even happened, right? So I mean,
the primary hasn't happened. We don't even really have a bench.
Primary,
We don't
right?
even really have a roster of yet that's formed to a decent capacity of who's running Green for president, right? I mean, I just got shared from one state party. I'm not gonna like out them or anything, but like I personally got shared that we currently have a bench of 5 people, including Dr. Cornel West, and one of them is a woman, and she's a Black woman on top of that. So I'm like, okay, I'm trying to get the party to be like, we need to be focusing on other things than Dr. Cornel West because he's kind of dragging our party. I mean, like I said, I felt like we got hit. Like, it's like getting hit by a cannonball. I equate it to that. We in the organization of the Green Party got hit with a cannonball level of stuff that we did not at all see coming. And so everybody is like scrambling. Well, oh, what we need to do, because we even had to check some of our state parties like Nevada, like Arizona, to stop endorsing this man on Twitter. Already,
Oh, wow.
we had to check them. I'm like, no, y'all ain't supposed to be doing that, especially since you have what? Primary votes. That's what makes it so weird with the Texas Greens, because I'm like, you have primary votes. This is how rigging scandals start. This behavior. And I personally, I've been telling my party, and they can act like I didn't say it, but I said it. I said we need to have a clean, rig-free, scandal-free primary election. That's what we need right now. And I don't like how all this stuff with Dr. Jill Stein and John Baraka, who I respected, like, because like I said, I voted for them in 2016. And
Yeah.
I had a certain regard for them, you know, with their alignments with the Green Party. Sometimes they'll do little favors in the back end for different things that we have going on with our committees, et cetera, et cetera. Cool. You know, be friendly, that's nice. But when you start messing with our bottom line, when you start doing things like undermine my ballot access committee's work, you know, like supposedly they got 220 volunteers to work on ballot access. I'm like, excuse me, do you even know that the Green Party has a whole ballot access committee? I'm on that committee. And you are basically undermining our work, undermining what we're trying to do and trying to build an engine for people to go get signatures by having your own little mission, your own little operation to go do that. I'm like, you can't say at those places that, oh, we're doing this for the Green Party, because you showing endorsement. Like I said, I don't know all the FEC legalese, but you're not supposed to be doing things in the name of the party, especially through using possibly the bank account of the Texas Greens. You're using their people, right? And, you know, at the same time, like having official volunteers, you know, from the Texas Greens to do your bidding in the Cornel West thing, which could get them in trouble as far as accreditation, you know, because it's supposed to be totally neutral. It's supposed to be totally independent. Like it was mentioned, we're trying to have a primary election where it's a contest, where there are more than one candidate or candidate interest that's running for that nomination. It's not just Cornel West. And for Jill Stein to even show her butt on Black Power Media to say, well, basically endorse him. She tried to do that whole, well, I'm not technically endorsing him or I'm not involved. But she's been doing all kinds of campaign manager work without actually officially saying she's the campaign manager. Her and John Baraka. I'm like, y'all might as well just say you are the official campaign managers of Cornel West and put that out there. because people have already done. I mean, there are people who've done digging deeper, and I'm talking from independent media, have already been digging deeper into stuff about my party and this particular Texas Green State Party and their activities, their suspicious activities with Dr. Jill Stein and John Moon and Chris Hedges. Even Chris Hedges had told Brianna J. Gray, well, I pretty much am like the media guy. I'm like the social media guy. So all these interviews that he's been getting is partially because of Chris Hedges basically going around and say, put my dude on every show. And
yeah, and then they make the rounds in the independent media, right? And then everybody reacts to everybody, and it's just a constant echo chamber, and nobody really is digging into what's really happening behind the scenes. Nobody's really like uplifting the voices of the people that are like, hey, you know, something happened to me. And no, they're squashed, and the echo chamber continues, and it keeps going around and around. And we need to break this cycle. We need to break this cycle of, you know, this continually happening, and just like tuning into whatever your favorite person is on TV and listening to them without criticism and without giving feedback or pushback or anything. And then if you do, you get blocked or muted, and then everyone's just like, oh yeah, they're just a troll. Like, no, we need to take people seriously that speak out against this. We need to give them the space to say it. Like, have a healthy debate, have healthy conversation about what's going on, because if not, it's just abusive. And it will continue to be that same cycle over and over again.
And to me, it feels like, I mean, I've been through this personally with my youngest son. Like, to me, this reeks of like elder abuse with Dr. West. Dr. West is 70 years old. He might be great at he's great at the platitudes, he's great at stuff like that. But the man's mind, as far as decision making and things he's signing and what he's getting himself into, especially like, I'm like, Dr. Cornel West in his like younger right mind, I don't think would have been like even in vicinity of an MPP at all. You know what I mean? And so I was like, I was shocked when he was like, oh, I'm gonna be on this advisory council, whatever. And I'm thinking like that just doesn't seem, it's so off brand. It's funny how Tavis Smiley talked about him being so off brand in running for president. Well, it's so off brand for him to be running for president through an MPP when you got, like you said, the Green Party. You can run independent, like of no one, you know. But all it's been is this media tour. It's for real. It reminds me of how elder abuse works. Like when they do that whole mental and emotional thing, and people just sign up and they don't know what they're signing up for. And for me, like, I really care about elders. Like we in the Green Party was trying to start an elders caucus. Well, there was a lot of drama with that, and you know, we still don't have it. It's still not like an official group, but there are elders who are trying to formulate an official group and do it the right way. It's still a work in progress. But when it comes to our elders on the left, like, people need to understand that they are even being predatory toward, like, they're being targeted because of, you know, you're aging, you don't have every capacity or whatever, but you can remember the past, or you know, you can remember some of the stuff you talk about all the time, but they tend to sign on dotted lines and don't read fine print or ask questions about an organization. I mean, you would think Dr. West, in all of his intellectualism, would ask questions about the organizations that he's tying himself to and his brand to. None of this is happening because Dr. Jill Stein, Chris Hedges, and Ajama Baraka are basically his handlers.
Yeah, it seems like he's being very guided and told a certain narrative, and then the echo chamber is repeating it back to him. And then you bring him on all these shows that basically give him these same softball interviews that aren't actually pushing him on these things. Like when he goes on Democracy Now!, and I think you showed me that interview, and I was like, what the hell? They gave him more of a pushback than independent media? Are you kidding me right now? Like, what is happening?
A lot of people know who follow me on Twitter. I've been watching a lot of the content, a lot of the interviews. The only people that really have given him any kind of like a real pushback interview has been Craig Pasta from Convo Couch.
Yep.
Amy Goodman from Democracy Now! And surprisingly enough, Laura Ingraham even did a little pushback interview from Fox News. Those are the only like vivid, I can remember hardball style type of interviews that I have seen. Everybody
I didn't watch the Convo Couch one, but I'll have to go watch it and so I can
with Pasta in the Convo Couch, that particular interview got demoted or is like pretty much almost non-existent if you were to go on the YouTube and just straight up. I mean, unless you put in the Convo Couch, Dr. West, it'll pop up, just like to their channel or whatever. But if you would just put in like just random to put in for the interview, or Cornel West, and you try to go down the list, it's not even there. This is how good of an interview Pasta did with Cornel West. They pretty much was like trying to like demote it or demonetize or whatever they do over there at YouTube, and not have it be permanent because to be honest, it was really that good.
Yeah, I used to, actually be closer with those guys, and I was a mod on their channel for a couple of years. And I stopped talking to him after he called me and yelled at me on the phone over the Rage Against the War Machine rally and me having questions about it. So like I kind of like after that was just, called me on my personal phone. And I haven't really publicly spoken out about that, but yeah, that's what happened. And of course, Steve and I were very loud back because, no, you're not going to call me and just like completely disrespect me like that because you don't agree with me speaking out or having questions against this rally. And it just really, it broke it. It broke, you know what I mean? It broke that trust for me. Like that was my breaking point with them. And, so I just kind of like fell away from watching it, and they were like one of the last like channels that I kind of like watched in independent media. And I definitely didn't agree with everything that they that they talked about, but for the most part I felt like like there was still some community there, and after that it was just like the last straw for me. So but yeah, I will go back and watch that interview. I mean, just being completely honest, I don't have anything to hide with this. Like right. I really don't.
Virginia, with states like West Virginia, like where Paula's from, these elections are very important. Like we gotta have real elections where we're not coddling what's toxic and what's narcissistic and what's and all these little backdoor meetings and because this whole thing with Dr. Cornel West talking about that internal conflict is a distraction. I think he got that from, guess what? Nick Brana. And then guess who continued it? Dr. Jill Stein. So,
if everybody's repeating the same thing, and they're repeating it on all of the same networks, and they're saying the same thing, I mean, yeah. I want to hear from Paula too. I think you got something to say down there. I feel like you got something to tell us.
Well, I'm looking to, because how is Dr. West and Jill Stein or anybody taking this seriously with Nick Brana? They cannot support a presidential election. The only reason they planned this, I mean, Rod's been talking about it on Twitter. The People's Party's been talking about it on Twitter. They thought an alliance with the Green Party would eventually get them ballot access. But it's not about winning campaigns. It's about popularity. It's about Nick Brana bringing money into the org. When we were there, he was pushing for Doar and Dr. West to run as president. We kept on saying, we cannot support a campaign. The People's Party can't do it. We are not ready for this. You don't have ballot. It's been 3 years as an organization, and you barely got ballot access in Florida. This is not about winning an election for the People's Party. And then I really respected the Green Party until that End of the Damn Wars rally and this alliance with Nick Brana. I mean, why? Can somebody explain to me what the appeal to Nick Brana is? What can he do for any type of movement besides giving speeches, standing in front of a camera? He lives in one of the richest neighborhoods in the country. He was 31 years old when I was with the People's Party, still getting an allowance, living in his mom's basement. Our struggles are his friggin' hobby. You know, this is a vanity project for him. What can he do? Can the People's Party do for Cornel West, or Jill Stein, or any party? To me, this is probably one of the biggest grifts I've ever seen. And why do we even have a Green Party if they're going to build alliances with a big nothing? And that's the People's Party. The only thing it is I almost called him Joe Manchin. Ain't that ironic? For Nick Brana to get on a podcast. And that's what he lives for. I've been around him. Here's an example. We were at his mom's house. Him and his mom had a big fight. We were supposed to meet Jimmy Dore over at the Capitol for a podcast. It was awful. His mom had kicked us out of his house. It's the most high school thing I've ever seen. We had Zaina's daughter there. We had not fed her. We were all going to get food. Nick literally was in the yard, not even letting us have our food, fighting with his mom to get over because it was so important to interview with Jimmy Dore that any of us even eat. It's the most bizarre thing I've ever experienced. I've never seen anybody so self-absorbed and so just wanting to be in front of a camera and want to be that important. And he's so abusive. I just don't understand the appeal to Nick Brana. He is a rich white kid that still gets an allowance. What the hell does he know about struggling people? He's never struggled a day in his life. What is the appeal to Nick Brana? I wish somebody would explain it to me. But people have to be so extreme that they even harass a rape victim. Why? And why?
Yeah,
Dr. West, I've respected him. And it just breaks my heart for him to sit there and say it's distraction. Oh, it's an internal drama. Women are important. Minorities are important. Well, we are. We are important. So why sit there and say these things and then turn around with political splits, a political speak and condone these abuses with Nick Brana? This is not me. This is not just Zaina. This is not just the people in this room. Hundreds of people have spoken out about Nick Brana and his abuses. We need more than a love talk. Somebody needs to do something about this situation. He's aligning with Nazis. He's aligning with racists. This has gotten to the point that it's dangerous. And how can we call ourselves leftists if we're going to sit here and allow this to happen? That's why I've spoke up so much. I mean, I've been so burnt out with it, but I spoke up about it, not only one to defend Zaina and her daughter, but all the volunteers that have been abused by this man. Something needs to be done. This is a battle cry. If we are going to have a movement in this country, it doesn't need to involve Nick Brana. What is he bringing to the table but destruction?
I haven't heard anything positive about the guy. I really haven't. I don't understand. I don't understand this pull that he has or these connections or whatever it is that he somehow has a hold on people. We need to stop letting abusers have a hold on movements. We need to stand up against it and say no more of this. Like we really do.
We fight abuses in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And when we branch away from that, because we're branching away from it because it's corrupt, because of those people, we continue to die. So why are we going to call ourselves leftists when we're embracing that same type of corruption with somebody that can't do shit for us?
Yeah, it's like MSM light. It's like I feel like the independent media on the left has become just like mainstream media, just lighter. You know what I mean? It's like a little bit more like it's a little bit softer. It's not as whatever, but it's the same thing. People do these media rounds, and then everyone does an echo chamber and reacts to everybody else's content when they have these people on, and it's just more of the same. And it's not like we're actually like getting in the streets. We're not doing mutual aid. We're not talking about actual revolution. We're not actually talking about how we can change things. We're not organizing, and we're having to like put out all these fires all the time. It feels like, and it's a complete distraction from what we really should be doing.
Like there is no fun in trying to end duopoly. Like I've been trying to get there. Y'all. I want to get there and have some fun ending the umpire. You know what I'm saying? But I can't seem to get there because I got to deal with people like Jill Stein and John Baraka and Chris Hedges and Dr. Cornel West and Nick Bronner, who seem to be just about themselves. They know how to do
like the left is like destroying the left. We don't even need to go into the right or the Democrats.
Like one of my fellow petitioners was like saying, well, if it's anybody that'll screw something up, it's the Green Party. I'm like, no. If it's anybody that'll screw something up, it's the independent left. Because the independent left loves cannibalizing itself, and that's after all the hero worship and all the celebrity centralization and all that stuff, and then the cultism. Oh my gosh!
Believe me,
the cultism of it all is just so it's throw up. You see that throw up emoji? That's what it is. I'm like, all these people who are standing for Dr. Cornel West right now, because it's like, oh, him announcing is like a dream come true to a lot of people. I'm like, do you understand the realities of what this man is going to have to go through? There's a man who's been married 3 times. The last marriage has started in 2021. They're going to probe this man on stuff like that before he can even get to even be a primary candidate in the party to go for a nomination. They're doing that now. And then on top of it, there are plans to sue the Green Party off of ballot. The presidential election affects the state and local level, folks. Y'all up here, I dream of Cornel West, but you don't forget you win a state and a local.
And here's the thing, though, there's no voter outreach. And how we're going to win elections is we're going to have to get in communities and we're going to have to reach the people that don't vote, because those are the people who are struggling the most because they have lost so much faith in the system. I challenge everybody in this space right now to go out in your community and ask them if they know who Nick Bronner is, Jimmy Dore, or Cornel West, and you'll find your answer. This is not about winning campaigns. This is about notoriety and money, and people need to wake up to that.
Yeah, no, I don't think my neighbors would know, because I talk to my neighbors about stuff all the time, and they wouldn't know who these names are. They would be like, who are you talking about? They might know who like Jimmy Dore is if I say he's a comedian, you know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that they're gonna know who he, you know what I mean, who he is in this arena, or who Cornel West is, or you know what I mean? Like it's and I think that before I personally can go out there and do any kind of voting, I think that we need to get everybody from all sides. And I'm talking about the people on the far right that we just like don't want to talk to because they're just like extreme opposites of where we are. And the people in the middle, we have to get everybody together and we have to come up with an electoral system that works for everybody, that everybody can for the majority of people actually agree on, because we have jerry rigging or gerrymandering, we have, you know what I mean, we have the electoral college, we have all these things, obstacles in our way, and it's like, unless we completely like actually get some integrity within it and some honesty, then I really just don't have any faith in participating in that system. You know what I mean? Like, local stuff is different. Your local stuff, you have more impact and there's less of that. But at the same time, when it comes to like the bigger elections, like I'm just looking at all this going, man, this is just crazy. Like, I'm paying attention to it because people are talking about it like a little bit, but like I'm just kind of like in the space of yeah, why am I going to bother with this if I don't have faith in the actual system to be able to cast my vote and think that my vote matters at all? You know what I mean? And I think that we have to get everybody from all sides. We have to get, because it has to be everybody involved, or else the people will say, "Oh, well, the Greens and the left, and they are doing this, and it's not fair." So we have to go and say, "All right, like, listen. Let's make it so that everybody has faith in this again. Let's make it so that everybody that's like, oh yeah, I've cast aside voting, they wouldn't actually want to vote." You know what I mean? Like, let's bring back that fairness, because right now our entire system is completely messed up. And I feel like there are good people that have tried to run for seats, and that we would be able to actually get other people out of office that we don't want to have in there. We would be able to, like, if we actually did that, can you imagine what that would do? And I think that that's like where we need to like start with this, because fighting over who is possibly going to be a candidate in like 16 months, you know what I mean? Like, it feels like insanity and absurd to me, because we don't have that basis there. We don't have that base of having something that everybody is like, okay, I feel like I can have some faith in that. Can you imagine what that would do? Can you imagine what that would do for like all the all other lobbyists? They would be like, holy shit, the people have taken it back. The people have taken back voting. The people have taken back how this works. And they're deciding this now. And we are null and void. We make them null and void by saying we are going to, no, we're not going to participate in this system this way. We need to come to the table and we need to fix this first. And I think that's where we have to kind of start, is like at the root of it, you know, so that we can, you know what I mean, have faith in something. And it might not be perfect, you know what I mean? But like, if we could do that, and I don't even know how to begin to like organize anything like that. Like, I don't even know how to, like, you know, the magnitude of it. But at the same time, I know that if we want to get the largest voting block is the non-voters, then we have to bring faith back into this system and start over with a new system that is not using all these corporations. It's not like gonna foster corruption. That's not gonna foster predators like Rana. It's not going to foster, you know what I mean, like this whole entire thing that we continue to spin our tires and do the same thing, and we're in like political deja vu or Groundhog's Day. It's like every 3 years we're like, oh, here we go again, you know, like everyone gets all pumped up and everyone gets all worked up and everyone starts debating and, oh, well, this person's the winner and this one's gonna do it and I'm with this one, when we're so far out from it and we don't even have the integrity in it. And it's like, if we really want to get people to vote, we have to give them a reason to. And we have to give everybody a reason to, from all sides of it, because I think that's our biggest, that's the biggest issue that I think that people have, is that they don't have confidence that their vote matters. You know what I mean? Like, how come we can, everything else we can bank securely, we can, you know, for the most part, you know what I mean, like we can file our taxes online, but we can't have a vote like where we can say, all right, well, these are the things that we're voting for, you know, this quarter, and everybody gets to vote on it, like where we actually have real democracy, not this like artificial and like fake, you know what I mean, like democracy that it's like we want it to be that. I want to be proud of, you know what I mean, and patriotic that we have the shining light on the hill. Like, I want to be proud of our country and where we're from, and that we respect people, and that we're, you know, we're standing up for what's right, and we're not, you know, being imperialists and doing, you know, all these horrible things other places and being bullies. Like, I feel like our government is a predator, and then we have the predators like running the show, doing the same thing, and we're not getting anywhere. Sorry. Like, that's just my thing about voting. Like,
I think about states like, you know, like Paula State, you know, West Virginia. I think about, you know, Joe State, Kansas. And especially, you know, earlier Joe talked about how she had to like really, you know, burn rubber and do campaigning in rural areas, because those areas, one, they don't get people that come and talk to them. You know, that's one thing. You know, number two, getting them to actually be active and vote, like literally leave their rural area and find a polling place to go vote, is a whole other, you know, animal as well. And so, you know, it's the same thing with small towns. I mean, everybody knows everybody in small towns. I mean, but there's also like a bubble culture where sometimes everyone has the same ideology, or everyone has the same, you know, thought process, or the same views on, example, for voting or whatever. And that's what you actually got to pierce through in order to get your message or your, you know, campaign to show like we're for everyone, regardless of what kind of, you know, area, geographically you're in, or type of town, or county or whatever. And when someone had put in, I guess, in the chat, something about wondering like who we voted for in 2020 and who we're going to vote coming up. I'm like, I'm an open book on that. I voted for Gloria La Riva in the general election in 2020. Through PSL, the pizza, the what was it, the pizza free, was it? I forgot what the acronym is for, but I voted for her because she had like a slightly better platform than Howie Hawkins. That's why I voted for her. Who am I voting for this cycle? I don't know. It's too dang early, and I just know I'm voting independent, so you can leave it at that. But when it comes to our votes, I mean, it's personal. Like when it comes to our votes, it's our choice. And some people, they'll skip the presidential and just vote the state and local. You know what I mean? Like a ballot is not an absolute thing. When you go into a voting booth, it is your business. It is nobody else's business. You know what I'm saying? So if you choose to share who you voted for, whatever, that's great, wonderful. Class for you. Here's your cookie. For everybody else who wants to keep it their business, it is their prerogative. They can do that. So all this whole going around, even on the independent left up here going around and vote shaming people and all this kind of stuff, y'all acting like Democrats and Republicans that way. Like, no, it's a choice. It is a choice. Okay. So if we're actually going to do something from the bottom up, I think one of the things that have to happen, and I've actually been vocal about this for like the past year for the Green Party. I said, y'all need to be the leaders on election integrity and party suppression. I'm like, you need to be like staunch, like going forward, be the leaders and say, we need to have policies that end party suppression and be about election integrity. Because if they do that, which nobody else is doing, not even the libertarians, they have something for people to vote for. They have a issue that we can actually rally around. And right now, Dr. Cornel West don't even have that. And y'all just trying to make him the presumptive nominee, and he doesn't even have a policy issue that we can rally around? Is you nuts? Thinking is not some people's strong point. And that's what bring logic to the chat instead of your feelings. Bring logic. Because we are not going to get anywhere with y'all like, well, I feel Dr. Cornel West is going to save the day. Well,
You need your own show, Camila.
It's just one of those words. Like, I'm sick and tired of people like talking with their feelings and making memes and doing all that kind of stuff. And he's not even an official primary candidate. He's a candidate interest. He has to go through our presidential campaign support committee and actually follow the steps through that in our organization. PCSC, which is what that is the acronym for, the Presidential Support Campaign Committee in our organization. They're the people that interests come to and get educated on how to run for president through the Green Party. He has not even addressed this committee. And this committee has been working hard on trying to update the rules, trying to get everything in place for us to have a real primary. And these people have not even been approached one time by Dr. Jill Stein, by Chris Hedges, or none of these folks. Not one meeting with them. But yeah, you're gonna use the Texas Green Party and for your little portal to have this Cornel West 2024 campaign pop off or relaunch, I should say.
It just all seems like it's just like it's literally like they're just using you guys as like like kind of like a side, you know what I mean? Like the big shiny object,
The Green Party is being used like a side chick. We are the mistress in this whole thing.
It's so true. I'm sorry to laugh, but it's so true.
I told people in the National Committee of Delegates, I said we are literally the side chick and the mistress in this whole thing with Dr. Jill Stein and Jama Baraka and Chris Hedges and Dr. West. They didn't have all the things that they were supposed to have. So you coming over to the Green Party because we fresh and new and exciting and we got ballot access and infrastructure. And you up and doing this whole, he running green. That's why you got the main chick mad and making smear campaigns about the Green Party. This is a mess. We are in a cartoon. People need to understand that.
It's the most cartoon.
Well, you're supposed to be about the issues where we can't focus on the issues. When you got TMZ drama going organizationally happening.
It gets us nowhere.
Focus on the issues. Focus on the poor working people.
I mean, you think it like Jimmy Dore for president with MPP. They got all that money from that. And then, Dr. West hadn't even got paperwork in, and they launched, which I know some people will launch, and then they report to the FEC. I think it's $5,000 they have to. But it's rare. I've read, of all the candidates I've seen, it's not like go out and do all these interviews and you are not even officially filed. And so People's Party has been fundraising off of this, and and that's sketch. And then now, the Green Party, and the money's going to Texas. And and then it's the treasurer of the Green Party, and then he ain't even the nominee. This is the most train wreck bullshit I've ever seen. And it's like,
there's no proof.
Dr. West is a good man. I do not doubt Dr. West is a good man, but somebody needs to do a well check on his sanity with this stuff.
I said it's elder abuse. The man, like I said, the man is 70 years old, and these folks are a little younger than him. So they know how to. They're just trying to scrape a vanity project into a presidential campaign through this Green Party.
Nick Bronick can't organize himself out of Iraq. His only way he organizes is to cause his celebrity brothers to show up at a rally. That's what he does. He invites his drinking buddies. That's how he organizes. He can't organize out of Iraq. How's he going to help Dr. West? It's moneymaker.
I don't think the actual intention is to actually have him become a successful candidate. I don't think that's absolutely. I don't think that's the goal at all. I think it's to launder money and to party it up and get fame and clout. And and that's just from my observations, from what I've heard from you ladies. Like that's just like kind of where I feel like. It is, because they're not behaving in a serious way. They're not behaving in a way that makes you instill some kind of trust in them, and that they're actually, you know what I mean? Like that they're serious at all. It feels like a clown show, and it's like, what is even happening right now? And I see everybody and then Wes is just kind of in the middle of this whole thing, and then it's like, yeah, I feel like Nick's got his fucking hand up his ass and he's fucking a puppeteer. What is happening? I mean, I can just imagine him off. I keep saying, I keep picturing him off camera, doing charades and having cue cards to tell Wes what to say, and oh, we went over this, you know what I mean, and drilling it in his head. Can anyone else see that happening? Because that's all I think of. I
really think it was one of those Nick did a pitch. And it's kind of like the equivalent of a little schoolboy trying to talk to the most popular girl in school, and for some odd reason it worked that day, and Dr. Cornel West said, "Okay."
And
that's how this whole thing started.
I don't understand this.
That's how it became. That was it. So, and it was funny because actually, when we were in MPP, the strategy initially was to get Nina Turner to be the darling presidential candidate of the People's Party. That was the original plan. I mean, remember, she was one of the top keynote speakers at the People's Convention. So it was oh, let me get Nina Turner to be the first presidential candidate for MPP. That didn't work. Obviously, she ran for a state level, I believe, and did that campaign to the Democrats. Next up, we seeing Jimmy Dore, of course. Jimmy Dore, was the next target, and so that's why People's Party started rolling out. Yeah, Jimmy Dore for president, and and everybody should get hyped to get Jimmy Dore to run for president. This whole draft Jimmy Dore thing also went down in flames. Okay.
And Steph is on the sidelines no, I don't want to do that. I saw her on the side.
Be first lady.
Yeah,
be no Michelle Obama, whatever. I ain't
Like your entire life is like you become a politician your entire life. I'm sure that you could speak on this apology, like, you know what I mean, like it's under scrutiny by the public, like your entire life. That's what you're putting your entire life under the microscope, and if you have dirty shit or you have skeletons in your closet, they're gonna come out. You know, there might be stuff that you don't want to come out.
People asking me, "Oh, are you gonna run?" I said, "Nope, I ain't running for nothing. I'll just be
I
a
would
worker bee.
recommend it.
Thank you very much. I ain't ready for nothing." That's why I give Joe all the props in the world for her running. I'm like, girl, you got some balls better than I do, because I couldn't do it, especially since I'm a mouth on top of this part thing in my pants ain't gonna dig up. No, I ain't doing that. But I'll help a campaign. I mean, I've been helping with campaigns since 2012, so I have no problem helping you. But I'm not gonna be that person.
You were great. You were a great keyboard warrior for me. Trust me.
Monarch, we do want to have a conversation with Cornel West. We do want to have one with him.
Yes, please come, sir. I got some things to ask.
Well, but here's something else too that I have a really big problem with, and I people's heard me say it. Cornel West is a presidential candidate. You know, like running for office, that was like the longest interview I ever had in my life. You know what I mean? We're looking at his resume, his credentials, and if he's fit to be the president of the United States. So why are we acting like this is no big deal? I mean, this has been a shit show, and he's running to be the leader of the free world. I mean, come on now.
Yeah, we need to like scrutinize everybody's resume of anybody trying to do this. Absolutely. And like they attack you though.
And the thing that I fear most, everybody talks about how Joe Biden is being handled. You know, like he can't, his marbles are gone and all that stuff. Not to say that Dr. Cornel, Dr. Cornel's marbles are totally gone. I mean, but the man is aging. You know what I'm saying? Like he can remember like the lecture that he gave at Harvard, and probably what he learned at Princeton, but he ain't gonna tell you exactly what he signed with Dr. Jill Stein and John Mubaraka to have this going. You know what I mean? Like he's not gonna tell you like I know about the inside of the Green Party. No, you ask him them questions. It's like he's gonna say, well, I just defer to Jill, they'll answer that for me, because I don't want this to be a distraction. I just want to have a campaign. He can't go with that script too much longer. I mean, that's the thing. Like when people start catching on to like he does not know about MPP, yet he was on the board, and he doesn't know about the Green Party, yet he signed himself up to run through the Green Party. There's something fishy in the water.
What did you have something to say, Paula?
Well, that's the thing too. When we were around, Dr. West wasn't around. I mean, Nick was like trying to get us to go persuade Dr. West to do something else because he's not around. And everybody that was profiled as supporters, some of those people had actually separated themselves from him and had to beg to get off their website, because that's what it is. Nick wants all those celebrities around him, whether they even support him back. So when all this stuff was going on in the Slack with the racism and everything, I was even quoting Dr. Cornel West to try to bring some integrity back to that space. I never imagined in a million years that I'd wake up one day and People's Party would be announcing with Dr. Cornel West, because I mean, literally, it's an unorganized joke. And I sincerely mean that. And then all of a sudden, here he is, he showed back up. And I mean, we were there, I wasn't even there a year. But I mean, during that whole time, I mean, Nick was trying to persuade Dr. West to even talk to him. So what happened? What happened all of a sudden?
Yeah, it's all this backdoor suspicious activity, meetings, and like I said, like the organization, who's lost in the shuffle of all this are volunteers like me, who are every day in these groups trying to fight for what's right. Because the thing about the Green Party, for example, like we're about to celebrate next year our 40th founding anniversary as an organization. We were organizationally founded through Maine. Maine made a little state party group or whatever to try to, bring the Green Party to the United States. Because what a lot of people also don't know is that the Green Party started off as an international party, political party. It was brought to the United States. That's the history of it. And so there were guys like John Resenbrink who, passed away recently, condolences to his family and everything. His legacy was literally building this party from scratch in Maine. And it was along with some other groups. There's some of the co-founders that are still alive today, also that are even on our national committees that I interact and work with every day. So there are like substantive things with the Green Party in and of itself that does not need celebrity, that does not need this whole we need to be in a red brown alliance and a Big Ten and all this kind of mess that Chris Hedges is roaming around talking about. We are an actual political party. And the other thing about it is that we actually have like an ecological philosophy that's tied to this party. So when people talk about, well, we're a bunch of hippies, well, the reason why we're a bunch of hippies is because from the very beginning, the party has been about environmentalism. That's why the sunflower is kind of like our little, I always put the little sunflower up as, as an emoji representation, because that is literally the Green Party. We are about environmental justice, environmental stuff, and then we work from that base on everything else, reparations, all that stuff. And we tie it all back to the environmentalism, because at the end of the day, we want a planet that lives on. We want a healthy planet. We want clean air, clean water. It starts from that base for us to do all the things like get a Green New Deal, like get jobs guaranteed, like getting housing for all and all this stuff. It starts from an ecological base. That's what the Green Party is at core. That is their green blood. And so when you have someone like Dr. Cornel West who does not know this, he is misrepresenting who we are, but he wants our nomination.
Yeah, he wants to run. He wants to like ride your coattails of what you already have established as a party.
Our ballot access and infrastructure. That's why we came to the Greens. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh man, it's yeah. I agree with Kitty in the chat. Talking about take off your rose-colored glasses with all of these different podcasters. Exactly. And
it's true.
These figures too, these celebrities, these, Dr. West, he's a great prominent name. I have a dream of getting like a philosophy PhD, and this dude was a philosophy, professor for his trade for like 30, 40 years. He was a great professor on those campuses. Which is why,
and just because somebody does that, right? And just because somebody's a great speaker and they say all the right things, it doesn't mean that they actually have a plan that they're going to enact to make these things that they like are saying. Like I can tell you, oh yeah, well I would do this, this, and this. But if I don't have a plan to back it up, and I don't have the organizing, and I don't have the skill set to do that, then what am I actually saying? I'm not actually telling you anything. I'm telling you what you want to hear, as opposed to how it's going to happen and how I'm going to enact this plan. And that's the thing. Like, we cannot fall for another Bernie, because Bernie woke up a lot of people, right? Bernie woke up a lot of people and gave people like all this hope. And he really pulled people out of the woodwork, and he really just everybody kind of like felt energized and behind that.
Yeah,
go ahead, Paula.
I was going to say, I don't think Bernie woke up a lot of people. I think that his messaging woke up a lot of people, and a lot of people woke up together, but Bernie was at the head of it. And that was the problem. We should have continued to take that movement and move forward. I know there's a lot of disappointments, especially, and I mean, I'm even talking about myself. We need to mobilize that power together. I mean, I do still have a lot of respect for Senator Sanders, even though he's still, he's pushing for, some things that I don't agree with right now. But, that movement, when you seen the crowds out, it was the messaging. And then there was a lot of people that run for office like myself behind him. That movement would have not been a movement if it wasn't for the people behind Bernie Sanders. It wasn't Bernie Sanders. It was us. all of us.
Yeah, we need to stop giving him credit for what we actually did and how we supported it, and like, you know, so yeah, absolutely, I agree with that. I think that you're right on that. Like we need to give credit where it's due, and that credit belongs also with us.
And
You know what I mean?
organized during that time. It was the messaging, because we were finally waking up with politicians on the pedestal. And you know, a lot, we've seen some good local, you know, some people win some local offices, some good ones across the country. And I mean, we did great things, and that shouldn't stop. We should really start thinking about mobilizing again, but not just putting a figurehead. The power isn't within us. And I think we need to raise the voices of the voiceless. That's why Senator Sanders was so popular too. Everywhere he went, he had somebody telling their story. And those stories is what won the hearts of other people across the country, because, you know, people struggling were finally given a voice, and they had something to believe in. It wasn't just about Senator Sanders. It was about a movement where people finally belonged, and they had something to believe in. Y'all got quiet, or did it? Oh, it's me messing up. Okay.
Whoops, was I muted? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you were muted.
Sorry about that. I was agreeing with you, Paula.
Well, I'm going to, it's almost midnight, and my fiance's daughters are here, so I'm going to get off here. But thank you so much for the opportunity, and I hope we all can get together and talk about some of these things some more.
Yeah, I think we should do do it again. I think it's a really healing place for us to be able to come together and, you know, even like find where we do agree and find out like we all have skills and we all have ways that we can help and contribute, and, you know, like let's figure it out. Let's work it out together, and, you know, let's do that.
Yeah,
Before you go, where can everybody find you?
Oh, I hope nobody can find me, to be honest
Well,
with you.
I mean, like online.
You know, I actually I've taken a break. I spent so much time in front of cameras, especially the last campaign, and just watching people always wanting to be in front of a camera. My kids beg me to take a picture. I only take family photos because I want to. I really enjoyed the because years and years of activism. You know, my family has went through a lot because of my activism and me running for office. And you know, I've got my second grandchild now. He's 4 months old, and I've been really focusing on my family a whole lot. This has never been one thing I've never understood about some of these people. It's, you know, I understand you struggle when you've not had your voice, and it's nice for people to like you, but I've never wanted attention so much. You know, one of the things that running for office that was awful for me was always people looking at me. It wasn't always about me. I tried to empower other people, but I don't get pleasure in being popular. The reason I fought this for so many years is I want to live in a cabin in the woods here in West Virginia and enjoy my family as much as I can. But I just don't want to worry. I don't want to worry anymore if one of my children or grandchildren are going to get cancer, and I don't want to worry about my neighbors being hungry, and I don't want to worry about anybody in this world suffering just because we don't have to. There's enough power and wealth. You know, there's enough wealth to distribute to everybody that nobody should be hungry in this world. But it's not. It's not about notoriety. We have forgotten. People are literally dying.
Yeah.
There's children here in this state that are literally getting cancer and dying because of their fucking zip code. That's what we need to build movements around, is people suffering, because these people don't give a shit about us, and they don't care if we live or die. They're going to be in front of a camera. But at the end of the day, you know what we got? Each other, and we need to continue to fight for each other, or we're going to continue to suffer.
We need to find ways to support each other.
And the next generation is going to suffer if we don't get our shit together. And I apologize for my language, but I mean, it's important.
No, you say whatever you want to say. Yeah, that's mild compared to what sometimes what's said on this channel. Thank you so much, Paula. Like that is just
Y'all too.
absolutely, from your heart. I can, you know what I mean? I can, just helping our neighbors and being there for each other and trying to find, you know what I mean, and being there for the people that aren't, like we need to stop being there for the predators and the people that are being abusive, and we need to be able to call that out in a healthy way, and so that we can address things. It doesn't mean that we're canceling somebody by calling them out or saying that, you know what, this behavior is abusive. That doesn't equate to canceling, and I'm not saying that anybody should cancel anybody. I'm saying that we need to be like adults and be a freaking set the actual example and have some integrity. Like, I feel like we're lacking on the left. We're lacking integrity and humanity. And it's like everything that are supposed to be our core values. I feel like they're not there. And people are just getting stuck in the celebrityness of it or whatever it is, the ego. And that's not what it's about. It's really not. Like, we need to take a step back and regroup ourselves and support each other.
All right. If people want to follow me, Camila, I put it at the bottom of my name. If it's seen, Black Unicorn Rose is my Twitter handle. So don't hesitate to follow me. And I'm a worker bee. I ain't trying to be famous either. Like, I'm not in these organizations for my ego or some crazy self-satisfaction. I help take care of my mom. In addition to volunteering, I mean, I'm trying to get a full-time job finally. I've been doing a bunch of gig work, constantly putting in applications for jobs and stuff. I just wanted to have a decent life. And only reason I'm like in an organization like the Green Party, for example, is I want systemic change. I want us all to have the clean air, the clean water, the healthy food, the reparations, to reconcile our past, especially with slavery and all that. Like jobs guarantee, housing guarantee, you name it, Green New Deal. Like, we need these kind of things to be part of our regular lives, our policies on every level. Because I mean, especially on the local level, I mean, hospitals have been closing. Paula Jean talked about people dying. I mean, there's people dying by police every day, and they ain't do nothing. But breathe. There's just a lot going on, and it's not to say that the COVID wave is over. There are still people getting COVID as we speak and going through it and dying, whether they're vaccinated or not. So I mean, there's a lot going on that needs work, that needs people to be about those things instead of about, oh, I know Jimmy Dore, or oh, I know Jill Stein, or or all that kind of stuff. Talking bad about the actual organizations that are doing things instead of condemning those that are being narcissistic, like the People's Party. Like, we got to have healthy boundaries, healthy standards, healthy limits to what we do. We can't just be laissez-faire and have big tents and do all this kind of stuff. We got to be organized, the literal word, organized. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, just follow me. I tweet all the time. I answer questions, all that kind of stuff. And if people are in the movement and work with me, I'll be glad to work with you. So.
I apologize. I didn't mean to be rude. If y'all do want to follow me on Twitter, it's Paula Jean 2020. I really didn't mean to be rude. I mean, if you want to follow me, you can. But
oh my God, Paula, you're so
gotta
sweet.
Give you a life. You gotta have some life. Just don't follow her on certain hours, people. Don't try to chat up. Take care of your grandbaby or something.
Paula, you're just the sweetest thing ever. You really are.
All right, and thank you, Joe, and everybody, and Kamala, and Lucky, and everybody listening. Maybe we can do this soon, but I've really enjoyed it, and I'm glad that we all got to hash this out. And love you, ladies. Good night.
Good night.
Love you too.
And I have to go too. I haven't eaten yet. So
Yeah, you need to practice some self-care there, miss.
Oh, and follow Joe.
Yes.
Your Twitter handle.
My Twitter handle is at Wildheart Forever. WILDHEARTF. I mean, blah, 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 blah. Let me start that again. WILDHEART4VR. Wildheart Forever.
We'll put all your names and your Twitter handles. We can put all those in the description below. So anybody that is like, oh my gosh, I forgot, you know, and you want to find one of these ladies online. If not, I also tweeted out and I think I tagged everybody, even Renee. And we have to do another show because Renee wasn't on and there's other people that haven't been on. So we're going to keep this conversation going and, you know, like make this a healing space, make this a place where we, you know, like we can connect and, you know, just keep building on this and find where we agree.
Hey, Lucky, last thing, you should put yourself out there because that jewelry you always promoting is so nice.
The what? Oh, the jewelry.
And the necklaces and stuff is all nice.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, if you guys want to check that out, it's on luckyburritoart.com. So I appreciate it. Was there anything else that you wanted to add before we finished up, Joe?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, ladies. Oh my gosh, this was such a good space tonight. Like, oh, I learned so much. I feel like I'm gonna have to like go and absorb it all in now. Thank you, everybody. Hit the like button. Huh?
I said we took you to school and church.
I know, right? Everybody have a great night. Thank you for watching. Please share it and get this information out there.
Good night. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having